Greetings to everyone. Salutations to all my followers, listeners, those who are supportive of this podcast. Welcome to another bi-weekly episode of Speak to the Mic. I am your host, Marlon Joseph. Here with me, I have not only a beloved and adorned cousin of mine, Kenya Hester, who is let me make sure I get the titles right. I always love to be respectful and give everyone not only their titles and their introductions appropriately, but basically giving them their flowers while they're still here in so many different ways. So I definitely want to introduce you all. This is my panel guest for today. She's a clinical nurse specialist with a CCNS, ACNS, BC for the cardiovascular and cardiothoracic ICU and cardiac step-down unit at Emory University Hospital.
That was a mouthful, but you got it.
It was a mouthful. I want to make sure I got that all together, right? So, yeah. I also want to make sure I mentioned this too. She is a recently retired Navy veteran for 21 years?
21 years, almost 22 years.
Almost 22 years in the Navy. Let me first start off by saying thank you for your service to this country. I've been on record stating how much I am just very appreciative of our armed forces, men and women in uniform, but primarily for my relatives who have served in the military, given the fact that the most patriotic thing that I found to be true in this world is to have a Black person serve this country knowing that this country didn't necessarily serve them in the same way, in the same
Absolutely.
way. And so
absolutely.
I give kudos and extra, credit to any Black men and women who have been in any uniform, military, Marines, Navy, Air Force, whatever the case may have been. So I would be remiss to not mention that, because that needs to be exercised and just definitely given to those who have done their due diligence and served in the military.
Thank you for that. Let me just say it's an honor to serve every day. We have civil liberties when you wear the cloth of the uniform. You're definitely embedded in various countries and nationalities and locales around all over the planet, actually, all over the world. And you get to see democracy at its best sometimes, depending on where you are. And then you can also see autocratic governments at their worst. Yeah. So with that, I would say we have a lot of disparities in the military. Like you see, we're just a small subcomponent of the regular community at large. So some of the same challenges we have in the community, we also have in the military. It's not always right out in the open, because we have our own set of standards, rules, regulations, our own court systems, and the way that we litigate, the way that we look at these incidences within the military is very different.
Yeah.
So you don't get to hear about it a lot, but we do have some of the same challenges, actually. So I would say serving for almost 22 years, it was the most rewarding work I have done in my life. Yeah. And even though we have systematic racism, some injustices within the military and outside of the military, if you ask me if I would go back and do another 22 years, I absolutely would.
And I would commend you even more for doing that, because I know for me personally, I gave it thought over the years to possibly, join the military, but then so much more has happened over the years. I'm just like, why would I put myself in a situation?
Why would you
serve a country that don't even respect me as a human being? And so I'm always of the mindset to give even more credit to those who did make that choice. Mm-hmm. So I really appreciate you, and amongst others in our family who have served in the military. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you all for more than one reason.
Yes, yes. And band of brothers and sisters, when you're overseas and you're by yourself, you're all you got when you're over there.
Yeah,
So there's a camaraderie that exists in the military that you don't, now that I've been out of the military for over a year, that you don't necessarily see
yeah,
within the civilian sector. Is a little bit more of isolationism out here, and you either make it or you break it out here. In the military, it's a little bit differently, even though the systems need some improving, updating, things like that. The
absolutely.
band of people, the good-hearted people that you meet within the military of all nationalities, I wouldn't give that up for the world. It's just a great band of brothers and sisters that you meet in the mass of 22 years. One duty station, you'll meet people. I still keep in contact with people I went to boot camp with.
Yeah.
It's just that tight knit community for sure.
But yeah, and for that, I appreciate you sharing that even more, especially given the fact that you have so many tremendous experiences you can actually, speak to as far as your own overall experience in the military. And I know not everything in the military is bad or racially biased, but
Right.
even to that point, there are different things that you have explored in your own personal life in the military that you can speak to that's above and beyond positive. And so I
Right.
definitely appreciate just the feedback you've been giving us when you were out there in Spain. I mean, I can only imagine how beautiful that was out
Yes. Definitely a lot of opportunities. We're going to have a separate podcast so that I can
there.
talk about some
Yeah,
of the advantages of the military, some of the things that we do absolutely right,
yeah,
opportunities for improvement,
yeah,
and what it would mean to have Black and brown people in the military to help further some of those changes that need to occur. Because as you said, the military that once existed and was erected was not necessarily meant for Black and brown people.
yeah.
However, if we're going to bring about a positive change, we need people not to shy away from the military.
You're
We need
absolutely right.
Black and brown people within the military,
Yeah,
taking up arms, standing the post, standing a watch, leading troops into not just the battlefield, but in the battlefield of racial justice. And we need those people that look like me and you there to
yeah.
affect change more appropriately
You
and
are absolutely right about
faster.
that. And I'm
Yeah,
reminded of something that in my last episode, a friend of mine who I went to high school with, she's a Chicago PD, and she said that one of the main reasons why she got into being in law enforcement was to fight the system within. And
exactly.
that's a very valid point. We definitely can't sit on the sidelines or be outside of the system for much longer and not fight it within. I mean, and I'm also reminded of this saying that if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far,
Exactly.
you go together. And
You
so
go
having
together.
that camaraderie or that collective effort within the system would help bring about that change in a more immediate, fashion rather than later, So, yeah, and I'm
Absolutely.
definitely going to have you on the show. I want to have at least two or three other either former military or even current military individuals on the show to speak about those issues, within our Black structure. So, being a Black man or woman in the military, I do want to speak to those who are in uniform or who are previously in uniform that can speak to their own disparities as well as their own success too, because there are
Absolutely.
some tremendous success stories within the military. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So two things too. I want to quick shout out and announcement to this company that I actually bought this shirt from, right? So, in case everyone, make sure everyone can read the shirt. So it says, "Don't let your little president get your ass whooped." So this is an unfiltered and uncensored and very unapologetic podcast. I want to make sure I also keep reminding my followers and listeners of that. I bought this shirt from this company, a Black-owned business called Teespring. So I'll be able to provide the information to my followers and listeners. If you want to purchase this shirt, I've had many people hit me up about this shirt. Like, man, where'd you get this shirt from? It's one of my favorite shirts because I am indeed a confrontational person, but in a positive way, right? So to also make this announcement too, I want to also give a shout out and a farewell to two of our Black former civil rights leaders, C.T. Vivian, who passed away this past week, and Congressman John Lewis, who
Hmm.
were both laid to rest this week. I will be remiss, and it would be a disservice to not acknowledge the sacrifices and the selflessness that they gave us on their many years of living on this earth, fighting a good fight with us. And I said to myself that I will not let them down with
Mm-mm.
continuing on with this fight, because John Lewis said something about, if you see injustice or just racial disparities happening anywhere, you have a moral obligation to say something. And the
Exactly.
fact that a moral compass is in short supply when it comes to politics, that is something that he stood for and he was consistent with, very vigilant about every single day of his life. I mean, this man, to think about what he went through on the Edmund Pettus Bridge on Bloody Sunday was just, I don't know many people who would have been able to go through that and still survive that, but then still be able to have that same mindset and say, well, we have to fight hate with love. We have to keep fighting and keep just pushing forward until we reach that point of equality. And
Mm-hmm.
so,
And
yeah, I really appreciate him and both C.T. Vivian, who was a civil rights activist back then with Dr. King during the civil rights movement, who pushed just a lot of different boundaries on making sure that we get to a place where we have somewhat of a voice. Now, some people would argue that we've been on a treadmill, and to a certain degree, we have. We've been walking, but we haven't gotten much. We haven't gotten really too far in life in terms of where we should be up to 2020. But
mhm.
it's not to say that we haven't made any progress. And like I said, I would be remiss and I would give them a disservice to not acknowledge just the selflessness that they put out here for us to be where we are. And
Right.
you know, I think it's disrespectful in any capacity to not acknowledge those that of the past generation who put themselves on the line for us to even have a voice today, to be able to
Yeah.
say yay or nay. You know, you have
Yeah.
people who are obviously saying things like, you know, well, yeah, stupid people like Kanye, who I don't want to ever give any credit, or I want to even highlight anything about him anymore, because he's gone off on the deep end, disrespecting people like Harriet Tubman, who sacrificed so much of her own life. And so
She
our
did.
ancestors deserve our respect from them, because without
Absolutely.
them, without us being on their backs and shoulders,
We are
we
on their
wouldn't be here to
shoulders.
have a stupid opinion about anything.
Mm-mm. They
And
actually
so
carried the water for many, 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 many years. They
they
carried
did.
the waters for many years. And just think about that. Just humor me for a second. When you
Yeah.
talk about C.T. Vivian and when you talk about John Lewis, giant greats,
Yep.
giant greats in our efforts for equality, and have been championing human rights above all civil
Yep.
rights, right? Civil rights are human rights and vice versa for many, many years. Just humor me on this thought though, and I'll leave this with you.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, both of them were sandwiched in. When I mean
Yep.
carrying the water, they're carrying the water to flower the seeds for the next generation, right?
Yep.
All at the same time with carrying the hope from the previous generation. It's a tough place to be in.
It is, man. And you and I have had this conversation in the past, just even from a personal perspective, right? So our grandmother used to talk about how her parents were,
Yes.
were slaves. And I think, what was it? You can probably refresh my memory on this. Grandma said she saw her father
Yes.
being killed.
Yeah. Well, she what she saw was him being arrested. He
Yeah.
was arrested initially, accused of touching a white woman, which he
Yeah.
wasn't even in the vicinity of. They took him off the bus, really. He was
Yeah.
on the bus on his way to work, and the police came onto the bus and took him and I think another man off of the bus in the
Yeah.
presence of my grandmother and his wife and my grandmother's mother at the time, so
Yeah.
my great grandmother.
Yeah. So
And
our great grandmother was the one who saw him
exactly.
being killed and beaten like that, and it drove her to a point of insanity where
It did.
it took her life.
Hmm.
The toll it took on her ended her life in
Yeah.
such a fatal just a depressive way. It's just that's disheartening to know that we have those personal experiences that some of us in our own families don't even really know much about. And so the fact that we are successors or predecessors successors of our ancestors who lay their lives on the line for us to be here in a
Right.
place where we owe them that. And I
We do.
always feel like we owe them not only our respect, but we owe them to be all that we can be, not only for ourselves, but for them too, because
Absolutely.
they didn't get to, fulfill their hopes and dreams in life that we are able to fulfill today. And we owe
Exactly.
them that.
We owe them. We owe them. And just like that generation of John Lewis, they felt like they were the uprising hope of a previous generation. So the
Yep.
weight of that and them still champion for equality and pouring the water and sowing the seeds for the next generation. It's
Yep.
it's a tremendous place to be in, and to understand that history all the time, every March. And what people need to understand is that the Edward Pettus Bridge was not the first beating that John Lewis. It was the only first beating that John Lewis had gotten that was televised, that
Yep.
was out for the world to see.
Yep.
But he had been beaten. The fact that he was even on that bridge after sustaining so many beatings, over 20 beatings before he got there.
In his 20s, he was
In
what,
his
23 years
20s.
old.
He was a young man. And the fact that he took those beatings, went to jail, was arrested so many times. And even while he was on that bridge, he had gone to that bridge in the trench coat with a backpack, with an apple, a toothbrush, a book, and some writing paper and a pen, because he anticipated that he was going to jail. At least he was
Yep.
going to jail, because he had been arrested so many times prior to that and beaten so many times prior to that. So the fact that he was able to sustain those beatings and still make it on that bridge to continue protesting says a whole lot about him, and how many protests he attended after that bridge.
Absolutely. He didn't let that
That
injury
wasn't the
to
last beating he
that
had.
gash to his head that left him bloodied up. He obviously survived that, and he said something about how one of the people who was in that group with him bumped the police officer who hit him
Exactly.
with that baton. He said, had it been a certain way that baton was hit, and it hit,
It would have killed him.
yeah, it
Yes.
would have killed him. So it was like that police officer injured him, but could have killed him had somebody not bumped into that police officer's arm. And it's
Divine
just like,
destiny.
wow,
Divine intervention.
my God, I don't even know how
Divine
to even
intervention.
describe that. That's amazing to know that. And so for him to have
Guess
been
what? He marched even on Washington
even on
after
Washington
that.
and basically had just a profound introduction to Dr. King's "I Had a Dream" speech at 25, 26 years old.
Was the youngest speaker to speak on the March on Washington. He was the last speaker and the youngest speaker. He was Martin Luther King was his mentor, but he had heard about Martin Luther King through radio broadcasts, listening to his sermons and things like that, and following him the best way that you could. Then wrote him a letter and said that he was 17 years old, wrote
17.
Martin Luther King a letter and just told him how he was just awe-inspired by everything he was doing and teaching. And he said, if you would have me, I would come. He just wanted to come and participate and come and help him further civil rights and his vision of nonviolence and all those things. And Martin Luther King labeled him the boy from Troy. That's where that name came from.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he sure
Martin
did.
Luther King gave him that name.
He did.
And he came and was a teenager and was helping him. He didn't know it at the time. He didn't know it at the time. Martin Luther King didn't know it at the time that he was actually going to be a protege for him, even in his late 20s, and that he was actually handing the baton to the next generation. He didn't know that his life was going to be cut so short, but really that is what exactly happened.
Yep, and the fact that he carried that baton for over 50 years, right?
Absolutely. And you know what, Joe? Here's the thing. We would have needed somebody coming up through the pipeline to even try to fill the shoes of John Lewis. That should have been happening about 25 years ago.
It should have. Yep.
And, we do have some young activists out here.
Yeah.
We do. And I'm not saying we don't, but it's just, when our icons, our Black icons leave us, it leaves us at a place. We know that, I said to myself, rest now. He has given so much. I said, God, I was upset. I was like, Lord, we losing our icons. And God said, Kenya, what more? He gave blood
Yeah,
for this country.
he
What
did.
more could he have done? He said, now it's time for y'all to take up arms.
And like I said, we owe him that
We
to
owe him.
be in a place to get in good trouble.
We got to get in good trouble.
We got to get in a lot of good trouble.
I was like, hey, when they get the shirt, make sure they make the shirt you have on good trouble. And then on the back, I would love for it to say bold.
Yeah, well, you know what? Funny thing about it, the last episode, the shirt that I actually had on was Colin Kaepernick kneeling, and it's a Black-owned business. It's called Power in Black, and they actually start making good trouble shirts and like different quotes with John Lewis on it. So I'm definitely going to be purchasing that, and I always make sure in every episode that I have on a Black business
awesome.
shirt that I purchase, and it's free advertisement. I'm not looking for like a discount or get free shirts, things like that. I'm doing this because I want to be an advocate for Black businesses, and I feel like that if we take our Black dollars and put it towards our Black entrepreneurs, we're going to help generate more Black wealth in our communities, and so I'm all for that.
Especially in a time like now when this pandemic is killing Black-owned small businesses. I mean, Black small-owned businesses are hemorrhaging and are shuttering doors. They said over 50% higher than our Caucasian counterparts as far as businesses go. That was the whole point of the PPP program, to support Black businesses and small business through the Small Business Association, so that they could give those grants to businesses so that they can pay employees while we're asking them to shelter in place and saying that they cannot open because we don't want to spread this virus amongst the team. Now, all of due to which I'm glad that they did, the PPP program is being monitored by a subgroup in Congress. And now all of the data is being fed to them, and they see that Black businesses, out of all the businesses, those are the businesses that truly needed this money. Absolutely. While we were giving it to multi-million-dollar businesses who did not require it.
Roof Chris and Steakhouse. I'm just like, these businesses are franchises.
Even Harvard. These businesses did not require this money. Now they gave it to them, and Black businesses who should have benefited, especially
so many of them that didn't get it. There's so many of them that didn't get it that claimed that they were basically saying that they weren't eligible or they didn't meet the criteria to get this money. I'm just like, well, so what are they supposed to do?
Exactly. And so a lot of Black businesses have closed because of that. They were drastically affected, and people just didn't even understand really how is it that we had billions of dollars set aside for businesses, and we could not somehow keep them from closing. And we have lost over 50% of Black businesses right now today.
And that's not even to say how many of them will continue to be gone in terms of like closing down permanently, because some of them would actually be situations where some of them can't reopen because they can't afford to reopen back in this economy with everything that's been going on, or just the overall damage has already been done. So
exactly.
It's
no,
crazy,
these businesses are closed. They did not, the program is ended for the week for the evictions.
Yeah.
So a lot of them were on a prayer and on a prayer anyway, because their landlords could not evict them because they couldn't pay the rent. Now all of that ended yesterday.
Yep.
Along with the unemployment benefits.
Now down to $200, but we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about it.
So let me get to the root, because I know we can go on and on about all this other stuff. That's how crazy this stuff is, right? So let me first start off by asking, how are you and the family doing?
Me and the family are doing fine. Because I am working in a hospital setting, as you can only imagine, I'm doing everything that I possibly can to keep myself safe at work. Because not only are we caring for COVID-19 patients, we are also caring for our other patients that are still sick at the moment. People, just because we're in the pandemic, people are still having strokes and heart attacks, and you have to care for those people as well. And not only that, but you're trying to protect yourself from bringing the virus even home to your own family.
Yep. And you know what? To that point, I want to give you the latest update I received was 4 hours ago, and it says the U.S. has 4.5 million cases of the coronavirus in this country, and 152,000 deaths to date.
153,000 right now.
53,000 right now, and in count, in count. So, because obviously this is just ongoing, right? So,
right.
Let me ask this question. So, the current situations that we're going through right now in just hospitals throughout the country, what can you speak about or speak to in regards to the state of where we at from a medical perspective?
Okay, so from a medical perspective, what I would say, so that all of your listeners are aware, is that unlike the first surge of this virus, when we saw the first insurgents, when we decided to shut everything down, okay, we had less people who were out who could contract the virus because we had shuttered a lot of doors. And so what we were seeing at that point was a lot of our elderly patients, nursing home patients, patients maybe who were at home and live with essential workers who were coming in and then infecting the older community. Yeah. So our population of COVID patients at that time were about 60 years old and above, okay? And it was, I mean, when they would come in, they would be super sick, but that was the age group that we were looking at. And it's not that we were not admitting young people, we were admitting young people, but they did not seem as severely ill as our 60 and up population and those patients that had comorbidities. Now, midway through that insurgence of the virus, things began to take a turn, because then what we saw was we were getting a lot of essential workers that were coming in, a lot of Black and brown people that look just like you and me. And we were thinking that, could it possibly be that they were not abiding by the stay-at-home order? But it wasn't that. It was that they could not abide by the stay-at-home order. A lot of them were being mandated by laws that they needed to come to work, or if they were off work for 7 days, they could lose their job. And when you're in an essential job like that, and you're having to take care of your own family, and to be able to court the personnel to stay, they start offering them incentives, right? To come in to work and giving them crisis pay and hazardous pay and all of these things. Well, that second wave in that first insurgent was a lot of essential personnel. People who worked in restaurants that were doing dine out only, or carrying meals to the street, or Walmart workers, police officers, firemen, things like that, security officers. We start seeing an insurgence in all of our essential personnel in that first wave. What we're seeing, we're seeing now with this second wave, though, is age groups and all kind of people all over the spectrum, meaning from very small babies, where women that are pregnant are coming in positive. The babies are being tested. The babies are positive. The newborns are coming in. The 3 months old are coming in. They're positive. The kids in the home are positive. The husband and the wives are positive. So what we're seeing now is cluster infections. So meaning not the very old, they're all over the spectrum. All whole households are showing up to our emergency department. Everybody in the house is sick, okay? And we're seeing very small kids being admitted to the hospital as the very old population. So
who have
no
pre-existing medical conditions, and obviously when you're older, you're much more prone to die from this a lot quicker than the younger ones too, who can potentially fight it off. But
but we're seeing some scary outcomes right now, even for 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds. We've lost a couple of teenagers here, 17, 18. Well, not 17, 18 and 19, where they're not pulling with the kids numbers when the state of Georgia is reporting, because they're over 17, they're being counted as adults. But we've had some very poor outcomes as it relates to kids, and we've had some poor outcomes as it relates to kids that are 13, 14-ish. Those kids have survived. However, they've had a terrible clinical course where they've been in the hospital for 2 and 3 months at a time.
Yeah, and I can only imagine too how much, to what severity that these hospitals are obviously suffering when having such influx of people coming in all at once. And it reminds me of something that I read about the media saying that, these hospitals obviously are they're short in supply when it comes to all the different supplies and needs that they need in these hospitals. Are you hearing anything about these hospitals are obviously running out of supplies to basically, medically tend to these patients?
Yes. So now at Emory, where I work, we're pretty sufficient as far as our PPE is concerned. However, we have had to make, because of our shipping supply lines and where we get our PPE from, we've had to make decisions based off of what we have in stock on any clinical day. Yeah. But I have not gone to work and not had what I've needed. However, that is not the overwhelming case within the state of Georgia and just really all over the nation at large. Because as you can imagine, as you're seeing this mass influx and this cluster of patients that's coming in, whole households and families that are coming in, we have to now, they're in the ED, we have to treat everybody in the ED like they're positive. So everybody in the ED is suited up all day from head to toe. So they're running through all of these mass supplies because they have to treat every patient as positive. Even the patients that come in with because it was a car accident. We're finding a lot of people who were asymptomatic initially, but because we're testing patients that's coming into the hospital before we admit them, we're letting them know that they have COVID-19. So it is a reason why we need that PPE initially, because some patients can absolutely be asymptomatic and not know that they have even contracted the virus, okay? Yeah. So as you can imagine, PPE is when you know a patient has coronavirus and when you have a patient that you know does not. Well, when you know that a patient does not, number one, they have to be tested. So we need testing because I need to know that you do not have coronavirus so I can stop wearing PPE. And when I stop wearing PPE because you are negative, I can conserve the PPE rather than continue to wear it and burn through it, right? But because our testing is not up to par throughout the state of Georgia and throughout the United States, we're having to burn through PPE more because the testing needs to be ramped up.
That is just fascinating in such an unfortunate and unorthodox way that, I feel sorry for patients who come into the hospitals who actually have other ailments and other situations happening to them outside of this virus. And medical experts and doctors and nurses like yourself can't even get to them right away because this is an unprecedented pandemic that we have to deal with first. And this has been put in the forefront as a priority above all else. And that's not to say that other things aren't a pressing issue to deal with, but it's like, okay, we got to deal with this first. And so, to your point, you having to test every single person, even if you're not coming in solely for that reason, you're still being tested for that. And
you're still being
testing,
tested.
Yeah, those are just supplies that's being used towards you when other people who are obviously possibly dying from this, like right away, also have to be used for them too. And so
exactly. Then you have to realize that you need the testing to be in place, not just for patients, but you need the testing to be expeditious as it relates to staff, because we have a whole lot of staff exposure as well. Because you may have a patient that came in, and remember, the nasopharyngeal swab, it only is a snapshot of, do you have the virus today? Okay. And so when you're swabbed, I'm looking for RNA in your nasopharyngeal passageways. It does not mean that you're not infected with this virus. What it means is you're not shedding this virus in a way that I can easily pick it up. Okay. So you may end up being admitted to the hospital with a negative coronavirus test and be a person under investigation and still be positive, and then end up on a non-cohorted COVID unit, right? Where we're taking care of surgical patients and all of this. And then after you're there 3 days, you develop a cough, okay? And now the patient is coughing and becomes symptomatic and yet is on the floor with non-COVID patients, okay? And then we're having to then test that patient again because their symptoms are not in alignment with their clinical diagnoses. And so we said something else is going on with this patient. And so now that patient who had the one test now needs the second test. You see what I'm saying? So you need the nasopharyngeal swabs. One patient may need multiple tests, okay? If they're going for surgery, they need to know, we need to know before we intubate you and expose everybody in the room now that with your aerosolized saliva now, we've infected the entire surgical team. If we don't know that, everybody that's performing this emergency surgery now needs N95 masks. They need to have face shields. They need everything. And so we're burning through this PPE at an alarming rate, but we need it if you want healthcare workers to be able to continue to take care of patients. We cannot take care of patients, number one, if we're not well and if we're short-staffed. The testing is inadequate because when we have staff members that become asymptomatic, then they're not able to come to work. We have to send them to get a COVID-19 test. When they get to the test, we have to wait 10 or 15 days before we're getting results back. And then either my staff member is negative and could have always come back to work, and now we're working short-staffed because I can't get the staff member back. So it's not just that we need nasal pharyngeal swab and the capability in the staff to perform these tests. We need the turnaround time to be cut in half.
Absolutely. 15 days is entirely too long, especially for those workers who are in the hospitals trying to medically tend to those patients who are actually suffering from this virus. So you can't wait 15 days to finally, okay, I'm good. I'm free of the virus. I don't have it. Let me go back to work. Well, there needs to be at least I hope it gets to a point where 24-hour turnaround, but obviously I hope it, go even beyond that. Maybe a 30-minute turnaround.
A point of care test right now, 15 minutes. We need to be able to turn that test around ASAP, because think about it this way: the more healthcare workers I have at home waiting on a test, that's less people in the hospital to provide care to patients, okay? A nurse is, people may say, well, a nurse is a nurse is a nurse. That is not the case. You have nurses that are very senior nurses. They have been, they have been in nursing for many years. They are my experts, my clinical experts at the bedside, and they are there. The nursing unit has a combination of expert nurses, medium nurses who are professional nurses that are no longer in a residency program. And then I have novice nurses who graduated 3 months ago on the floor. And if you have a good mix, it works. But if you if my senior nurses, which typically are older, are at home waiting on COVID tests and they're scared to come back to work, and neither should they be, then that clinical expertise is not on the unit.
No, it's not.
It's not on a unit where that is where you want to be. Now the unit is made up of novice nurses, okay? And then maybe not so novice, maybe medium level professional nurses, and you don't have the level of expertise. And these COVID-19 patients are so sick. Some of them are coming in multiple organ failure. Some of them have waited so long to come in because they did not want to be in a hospital where there were COVID patients. So they stayed at home longer than they should have. By the time they come into the hospital, we are cold blueing them. They have had a full stroke and are now exhibiting symptoms, or they felt chest pain at home and didn't come in, and now they need triple bypasses. They are really, really, really sick. And so this time around, we did not stop the elective surgeries because people that have cardiac issues still need care. People who have multiple sclerosis still need care. People who have liver failure still need surgeries and transplants. And so the COVID-19 initially, we had stopped doing all of that. We decided that probably was not the best clinical practice, because so many other people are super sick now because they had months where they should have come in and they have not.
Yeah. And so, and even to that point too, now I honestly know in my heart of hearts that obviously the number of cases for the coronavirus has been exacerbated with the amount of people who have either had it or either died from it, right? So obviously, to a certain degree, we all know that some people who have died from it hasn't been just solely this virus, right? It's been a combination of several different ailments that obviously have taken its toll on the human body that was an end result of them dying from it. So obviously, along with, it could have been pneumonia, it could have been any other situations you have with your respiratory system, that some kind of respiratory infection on top of this virus that obviously came together and joined forces to basically ail your body to a point where you died from it. So I know that the numbers have obviously exacerbated from that standpoint. But even given the fact that, up until just a couple of weeks ago, we learned that CNN reported that the hospitals are no longer going to be sending the data over to the CDC. From my understanding, it's going straight to the dumbass and his dumbass administration. So I need to know from you, because I'm having trouble with understanding this, right? Because I know what he's gonna do with this shit. He's gonna take the numbers and say, well, we all know we're doing a tremendous job. Everyone says it, everyone loves it. It's going away. And everyone's talking about how tremendous we're doing. If he say tremendous one more fucking time, like I the word now. I can't even use tremendous and be sincere about it anymore, because that's all he has in his damn vocabulary. He says tremendous about every damn thing.
Tremendous in a disaster.
Disaster. It's the greatest. It's the worst. Everyone talks about it. Who the hell is everyone? First off, damn. I mean, again, I'm always say this in every episode. This bastard lie about the lie that he lied about, and he keep lying about it. So the fact that now we're understanding that CNN reported that the coronavirus cases and data are going to now go right to the White House and their administration. What comes to mind to you personally when you think about that now?
Well, the thing is, we're concerned that the data, number one, is not going to be accurate. That they're gonna release the numbers almost like they're doing in the state of Florida, where they're picking and choosing what data is going to come out.
Exactly. They're going to water it down. They're going to dilute it, and they're going to make it seem like, from their perspective, we have a handle on this, when in fact we don't at all.
We do not have a handle on it. And let me just say, on top of that, we have seen an increase in numbers of people dying at home, meaning they have waited so long to come in that now they're passing away at home. And then what they're trying to do is not count those numbers. So those people are being tested for COVID-19. If they're positive for COVID-19, but they died of a heart attack, they don't want to associate the COVID-19 as being the exacerbating factor for the heart attack, and they don't want to count those numbers. So they want to cherry pick which COVID-19 cases are being counted and which ones are not. So they are going to manipulate the data, in my opinion, so that the data is more favorable to this administration. Why take we're dealing with a pandemic, correct? So this is a virus. Exactly. This is a virus. And the last time I checked, we had a Department of Center for Disease Control who is responsible for taking care of viruses, bacteria, extremophiles, and coming up with policy, working with our health organizations to set policy to be able to, one, mitigate these viruses, stop them from even happening in the first place with vaccines. That's all their wheelhouse. Why would we take the data they need to do their job and send it to the White House, whose responsibility of managing disease, that is not their job?
That's not on your resume. It's not your repertoire. Why are you so concerned about something that needs to go to the Center of Disease Control to make sure that they actually they monitor and keep tabs on what it is that's happening from a day-to-day standpoint, from a minute-to-minute standpoint, so they can obviously develop some type of plan to get a handle on this, not to politicize the shit that you're doing, because that's exactly what the hell they're doing. And even something that you said earlier about just speaking about asymptomatic or being asymptomatic, right? So a few weeks or maybe a couple months ago, the dumbass governor here, Kemp, sat here and said that he didn't know that you couldn't be asymptomatic.
I was like, what rock have you been under all this time?
Listen, the damn CDC is down the damn street from your damn office. How the hell don't you know that? You got to either be stupid or you're lying, or both, because you can't make this kind of shit up. How you don't know something like that when it's ridiculous. Damn Center for Disease Control is down the street from you?
Right down the street. We have walking distance access.
And sue Keisha Bottoms for mandating that people wear masks. Now I'm gonna get to the mask.
And she stood up. She said, "Well, I'll see you in court."
He done lost his damn mind sitting up here telling people, "Well, you can't mandate something that people are not going to abide by." Then what the hell do we have laws for then?
What do we have them for?
You're going to sit up here and make a statement like that saying, well, she can't do it because no one's going to listen to it. Well, listen, and getting to the mask part, I'm going to go ahead and skip to it. So I equate wearing a mask to wearing a seatbelt, right? So
Yes.
none of us want to do the shit, but damn it, it's to not only protect you, the safety of you, but also protect the safety of the other drivers and passengers in other damn cars.
Exactly.
So damn it, we have to do what we have to do, and
we have to
don't have to do it no damn more.
Right.
But it's so damn hard to do that. Now, I need to know from your standpoint, why are we having so much pushback with people just making it mandatory for people to wear masks?
Because we have politicized it. It has become a political issue and not a health issue. Hence, the statistics not going to the CDC and going to the White House. You continue to make this a political issue. It is not a political issue. This is a pandemic. That is, if we do not get a hold of this pandemic, it is going to sweep. We talked about the military being a subset of us.
Yep.
We live in a community, okay? Even when I was stationed all over the world, I lived in a community, right? I lived in the community in which I served. So when I lived in Spain, I shopped, I did everything in the community there. I also had access to the base and I was on the base. So if we don't get this thing under control, it's going to inundate the military. And a sick military cannot protect anybody. Okay, we just forward deployed. Then you have your fighting force here, your police officers and your fire department. Those are your local forces. If we don't get this under control, it's going to sweep through them, and then they're not going to be able, it's going to be mayhem in the streets. If you do not have a policing force, a local security force of some sort, whatever you want to reimagine that to look like, okay?
Yep.
Whatever that is, if we don't get this under control, that's gonna break down. And then the national system and the Department of Homeland Security, that's gonna begin to break down. Yep. And if that starts to break down, guess what? The United States becomes very vulnerable.
Well, you know what?
We become very vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. And even to that point about the United States, right? Because I like to call it the divided states, because you have 1 minute you got one state governor saying we're going to reclose the state. Another governor saying we're going to stay open. Another governor saying, well, just do whatever it is you feel like is necessary for you. What the hell kind of damn statement is that to make when you're the damn governor of a whole state of people? You're sitting up here leaving it to the people, and I'm gonna get to the people in a minute, because this ain't just about the political officials who are in these positions of power. It's about the damn civilians themselves too, who are acting real stupidly about this situation and not taking this serious enough. Because I've been on record making some statements that obviously were deemed controversial in regards to people taking vacations during a damn pandemic. What the hell you vacationing for? What are you celebrating right now? You ought to be just celebrating within the comforts of your own damn house that you're still alive during this damn time. Because there are some people who aren't alive during this time.
They're not alive during this time.
Or some people who aren't going to be alive during this.
Right, Joe, but this is not complicated.
You think it won't be. You think it's not.
I'm saying it shouldn't be, because policy, we know that policy should be directed from the top, right?
From the top down.
We do understand that we have individual states, we got individual, counties, we got individual, local communities where there's mayors and all of that. I'm not in the cities. Listen to me. We have always had a hierarchy about the way we set policy, okay? Yep. So I'm going to use the military just because I can, because you have forces all over, but we have an overarching policy, right? We have a mission and a vision. It comes from way up here. That's why we have the Department of Defense. We have the Chief of Naval Operations, our CNO. They're responsible for setting policy. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, all of them set policy, right?
Yep.
Now, as it comes down, it says, this is the policy. Once it moves down to us, we say, okay, this is the policy that in the direction that has been sent. And we say, okay, but we're in Spain. We're going to have to work with our Spanish partners to be able to accomplish this policy. It may look a little different from us, but this is our marching orders, okay?
Yep.
And maybe if we can't get exactly to that policy, then we come up with mitigation and strategies so that we can get real close to whatever the direction that you set for us.
Absolutely.
Okay? And then coming on down, I have people that fall up under me. However, they're for deploy. They out, you know, in a small group someplace, and they may say, "Well, I got your policy. This is how it's going to look for me, and this is how we're going to meet it. This is what my staff is going to do." And so you get all of these subgroups of the same policy, but the overarching policy is here. What we're saying about having no leadership is that this administration refuses to set the overarching policy. Yes, the governors can then, I'm not going to dictate to how you accomplish that policy.
Yeah.
That's not up for me to do. You know more about your state than I do, okay? Being someone from Illinois, you may know more about Georgia than me. Okay, governors, here's your marching orders. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to meet this policy. I am telling you this is the standard. Now, you may move around what you must, but you got to get here, okay? Now, you can go over, but you can't go under. This is the standard. And that goes all the way down to the mayors. Okay, mayors, here's the standard. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to move your school buses and your police personnel around. I'm not going to dictate that. You figure that piece, how you going to meet this standard. I don't understand why this is complicated. We do this all the time.
But I mean, here's the thing,
all
though.
The time.
We've done it all the time in the past, and obviously it effectively worked, right? We're dealing with a dumbass who are just, he's just in the business of just benefiting himself and benefiting his family. So he don't give a damn about what other governors are doing, because we're seeing pushback from mayors. We're seeing pushback from mayors, from other governors. Obviously, Governor Cuomo in New York, obviously, he's been very, very critical of the president, and rightfully so. But my thing is, in totality, when we think about the governors, the congressmen and women, the senators, we're seeing all this political swinging contest shit that they're doing. But it's not getting us any damn where. You're sitting up here bickering and arguing. You want to tweet back and forth. Damn it, we got people whose lives are on the line right now. People who have died from this. And you sitting up here want to tweet about some shit that's irrelevant. This is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And those people, could you imagine being the governor of Georgia, 171,000 cases, almost 5,000 lives lost.
Mind you, Fulton County, the county that I live in, it's the #1 county in the damn state now. Now, as of right now, Fulton County is the #1 state with the most cases.
With the most cases. Now, and just think about that. Being in a position of leadership, could I even go to sleep at night? Could I, me, myself, go to sleep at night?
Again, without, well, you can go to sleep. You can go to sleep at night when you don't have a moral compass. You can do that.
You can't have one.
You can't have a soul and then not care about this.
On my hands with 6,000 lives lost. Now let's think about the bubble that the NBA is in right now. They're in the bubble, right? They have been in the bubble all this many weeks, prepping for the reopening of basketball. After all of this, they've been pretty much in isolation, basically. Okay. 2 positive cases, and that was like 3 weeks ago. And they have not had any other positive cases, and they tested every night. Every night. They do.
And obviously, the NBA is a private sector, so they're going to have access to a lot of different test equipment and all the different supplies, so that they can make sure that their employees are oftentimes being tested like every day, every 2 days.
They have proved something to us. Now look at baseball, who's doing the completely opposite. It's not a bubble. And they're canceling games. The Marlins can't play. They just announced today that 3 other teams, they're canceling all those games because they're not in the bubble. They're allowing them to travel. They're allowing them to go home at night. They're allowing them to lodge where they want to lodge and all these things. And guess what? They keep getting infected. So what has the NBA bubble proved? They proved that isolation, works. Quarantine works.
Now mind you, this is like the first 2 nights of the NBA season resuming. So let's hope that the trajectory continues on, right? So
just since they've been doing this isolation for the last 8 weeks. They've had 2 positive cases in 8 weeks. What they've proven is living this kind of constrained lifestyle minimizes the spread. And
Yeah,
what
it
are
does.
they doing? They're isolating themselves to a certain extent.
Yeah.
They're doing frequent testing,
They're wearing
right?
masks. They were
They're
even
wearing
wearing masks
masks.
on the side, in out of bounds area during the game. So they right
Exactly.
there on the bench wearing masks. The coaching staff, some of the players who aren't playing, they're still wearing their masks. Things of that nature. And
Exactly.
they even like created a certain amount of space between each player,
Each player.
from a seat by seat basis. So it's
So
like they're
isolation
taking the
works.
precautionary steps.
Socially distancing
Yep.
thus far
Yep.
works.
Thus far. Yep.
Wearing a mask thus far
Yep.
works. And frequent testing works.
Yep. So it's like 2 + 2 is 4. Damn it, it's never gonna be 5. So it's like, well, how is it that you're not able to mimic this? So why can't you mimic these same precautionary
it's too easy.
steps?
It is too easy. We know what works. And guess what? It don't just work for the coronavirus.
Yep.
These are the methods we have used, right? For any virus that has gotten out of the control. This is not the first virus that has gotten out of control. Remember H1N1? Remember Zika? Right.
Zika, SARS, Ebola, all these different viruses that came about that in the past we had a better handle on. We had
exactly. The avian flu. We've had so many different ones,
because we had a certain task force that was in charge of making sure we had a better handle on it versus Mike Pence being in charge of a damn task force where you're telling medical experts to no, we're not going to say that. We're going to say this because Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci's asses, and obviously there's been some talk about them, and obviously they need to be criticized for their initial approaches to this virus, their response to it, because they've been on record saying, okay, you shouldn't have to wear a mask right now, but only to turn around and months later say, no, you should have been wearing a mask.
Okay, so let me just talk to you from my experience, right? Yeah. From a nursing perspective. When we had that first insurgent, we had a treatment plan for COVID-19 patients, okay? Every week, at the end of every week, we would have what we call a ECC, a critical care call with all minds, from respiratory therapy to pharmacists, to nurses, to doctors, to critical care, all the way out, right, to environmental services, people who go in and clean the rooms after COVID-19 patients are discharged, all of that. And what we found is our current treatment plans that we thought may be effective against this virus, come to find out some medications tend to do well and some didn't. We tried hydroxychloroquine, we tried remdesivir, we've tried steroids, we tried a cocktail, numerous other medications. We tried proning techniques, we tried self-proning techniques, we tried making sure people had VTE prophylaxis to prevent blood clots and all of those things. And guess what, Joey? Our treatment plan from that first insurgent looks very different than what we're doing right now. It looks very different. And you know why it looks very different? Because the more you treat patients, the more you come in and see how they present, the more you like, okay, maybe we should be looking at it this way. Okay, what we noticed is from that first group of patients is that they have a lot of coagulopathies, meaning they have a lot of blood clotting issues. Yeah. We did not realize that before, okay? That we saw in clinical practice when we needed to put people on CRRT machines, which filters the blood. It's like hemodialysis, but done on critical care patients. Yeah. What we noticed is our filters were clotting. We like, why are our filters clotting like this? The patient is on blood thinners, but what we realized is that the level of blood thinners that we were traditionally using for critical care patients were not effective for COVID-19 patients.
Wow,
so what we understand now, exactly what we understand now is that COVID-19 is affecting how the blood is pooling and clotting in the body, okay? Yeah. Which is why some very young people ended up having strokes. They were also dying from PEs in the lungs, all of these other things. And so we said on our first call, let us think about this, okay? Yeah. So if we're seeing these microclots in the filters and in the lungs and people are having strokes, could it be that they also are having multi clots and in like small vessels of the major organs? Could that be why they're going into multiple organ failure? So then maybe we need to check those biomarkers when they come in through the ED. And those patients should be instantly admitted and not sent home, even if they appear to be doing well. Because what we were seeing is I would go in one room and be talking to a patient and go attend to another patient, and then somebody is coding the patient that was just talking to me. You see what I'm saying? They would go down and go down fast. So the way we treat patients now is much different than it is before. Now, that's just a long way for me to get to Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx.
Yeah. Now, before you do, I want to ask you this funny question. This real stupid question, right? So, hydroxychloroquine. So, in your experiences as a medical expert in this field, the many years of experience that you have, both in the military and even from a civilian standpoint, have you ever in your day experienced someone taking some damn medicine that they didn't need for a damn virus they didn't have?
No, and a doctor would have their license pulled from even prescribing such a medication.
So in other words, Trump is probably, if not arguably, the stupidest sumbitch there is known to man. How do you take medicine for something you don't have?
Exactly.
Like, really? I take it.
Well, what they guised it as him taking it as a prophylactic medication, and they made the determination for him to take it as a prophylactic medication based on his exposure. But they're not telling us what that exposure was. Okay.
Really, and so it's just fascinating to me too that everyone around him seems to be contracting this virus, but he hasn't yet. Oh, it's something we're not being told right now. The American people are not being told.
Well, he lives in a bubble.
Conditions.
They're testing the White House staff, which we don't have the luxury to get a test in one day. Everybody that comes in gets the rapid test, and they're not allowed to work unless they are screened that they are negative. So he feels comfortable.
Did his chief of security recently get just recently contract the virus too? Like it was I think he was the most recent person who
he's the ambassador. I think he's one of the his security advisor.
Yes, his security advisor. That's who it was.
It was his security advisor.
Yeah.
But he had just got back from Europe too.
Okay.
He had just gotten back from Europe, but they don't believe in wearing masks. And because the White House has now become a bubble, they're being tested every single day. They enter that building, they have to be tested. Yep. And so he feels this sort of relaxation because at least he knows everybody that's walking in the hallways have been tested today and they have screened negative. So it's false assurance. Okay, because we already talked about them being negative in this snapshot of time. Just means I'm not shedding the virus. Don't mean I'm going to be negative tomorrow.
Exactly. And even to that point, so it's been reported that that it was being said that 2 months ago, had we mandated that people wear masks, we could have potentially and possibly like decreased we could have had a much smaller number of cases and deaths dealing with this virus had people been wearing masks all along in this country.
All along.
I need to understand how true is that?
No, it is absolutely true. What we do know is that this virus is very heavy. And so we call this like a droplet, right? We have different isolation protocols in the hospital where you may put someone on droplet precautions, or let's say somebody who you suspected of having TB, okay? If you suspected somebody of having TB, that precaution needs to be elevated because those droplets tend not to be very heavy and fall to the floor. They tend to be aerosolized and be misty and hang out in the air, okay? So those people need negative pressure. So when we would enter those rooms, I would be in my N95 mask, my complete face shield, a complete gown, and like you look at me, you're like, my God, where are you going? I'm going into a TB isolation room. And because we know those droplets are so finite, you need all of that protection when you're in that room. Now, not necessarily so when you're in the droplet precautions, because those droplets are so heavy, they don't hang out in the air, they kind of fall to the ground. Fall on the bed. You still need a gown and gloves. You need a face shield. You don't necessarily need an N95 mask, but you need a regular surgical mask when you go in those rooms because aerosolized mist in the air can actually go through that gown and you can inhale it. That's why you need a respirator when you're in a room with somebody with TB.
Okay, so now to that point, I want to ask this question real quick too about, okay, now I'm not a medical expert by any stretch, right? But I do know this. There are 3 places on the face that consist of mucus, right? There's the eyes, your nose, and your mouth. So with that being the case, you would think that people would be more receptive to wearing protections or just wearing masks in general. It's not to say that the mask is a one-off or in all things is going to just decrease your chances of getting the virus to 0%. It's not saying that, but the likelihood or just the probability of it is going to decrease by some significant amount of percentage that will decrease you from contracting this virus. So why is it that just, well, it's impeding on my rights to breathe and I can't breathe? You have people giving bullshit excuses as to why they can't medically wear masks, saying, well, I have breathing issues, I have asthma, I have respiratory issues.
You are the person who needs it the most.
Exactly my damn point. How you gonna sit up here and fight against the very thing that's gonna help you breathe a lot longer by saying I can't breathe in it? And then we have stupid people who are actually keeping the damn mask on in the car. You're killing your damn self, suffocating in the damn car with the windows up. Take the damn mask off when you get in the car. Why is it so hard we gotta sit up here and like hand walk you through this? Take the mask off when you're in the car.
Right.
Only put it on when you're out in public places. Now, I've had people criticize me for going on social media, obviously recording me doing my cardio around my neighborhood without my mask on. Now, mind you, I'm not around anyone. I am outside, but I want to know from you, should I be wearing my mask outside? Because now we're getting updates that's saying that it could potentially be airborne. It could be, just out in the air in the open, whether it's in populated areas of people or not. But it could still be some kind of way that you can contract it, because even in the summertime right now, it's over 90 degrees every damn day here. But yet, and I've learned that viruses don't generally live in heat, but yet this virus exacerbated, by any stretch of the human imagination. But it's like, how is it that we're still dealing with this based on the severity of this virus and just how much it has increased over the months?
Right.
I'm just really confused.
You
about
like
that.
To help me out with this mask. Okay, so let me.
I need to understand.
Idea mask. Let me say this about Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci. So,
yeah,
people who are scientists and people who know science and who take care of patients, who understand. That's why we do clinical trials. When you are encountering a novel virus, you don't know everything about this virus. All you can do is you use the makeup of the virus, how people are presenting, and you say, okay, this is similar to X. Now I know about X. Yep. So we're gonna start out with a treatment plan that looks a little bit like this. And then as you begin this patients, you realize that that's not working. And so we're not surprised that Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx got it wrong initially. None of the people, if you ask anybody, whether it be a doctor, a nurse, anybody that works over at the CDC, none of us are like clutch our pearls surprised, like, oh my God. No, we know that we get this wrong. That's why there is no exact science, right?
Yeah. But would you say that the Trump administration had put them up to saying certain things, like obviously diluting their analysis on this from a medical expert standpoint?
I don't think me personally, as a nurse that is beholden to my own license, you know what I mean? My own license and my reputation. When I think of a Dr. Fauci or a Deborah Birx, they are giants in the scientist community. And I don't think even this president with his ability to be able to manipulate people and things like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't believe they would put their reputation on the line. After all, their reputation has to outlive this president.
It does, but even to that point, right, you have to always be worried about not only being fired, because Dr. Fauci has been on record, working under 6 previous presidents, right? So he's been in this field since 1984. So he has a tremendous, his resume speaks for itself, obviously. But even to that point, working with this idiot in particular, could result to you possibly, I guess, diluting the facts or just leaving or omitting some things that you wouldn't omit to anyone else, because obviously he's worked with Obama in the past, but he was able to speak in full-length detail about the different diseases and viruses that came about during that time. But I want to ask, do you think that Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx have failed the American people by not dispersing the information early on and not strongly recommending from a medical expert standpoint that it is in our best interest to wear masks?
Right. And so let me say this. If I had to honestly answer this question, let me say this.
Yeah.
Number one, I don't know if you all are aware that the first Ebola patients were brought to Emory.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't.
So Emory has a task force that was set up to handle the first Ebola patient, right? Remember the first patient that was actually tested for Ebola and screened positive was in Texas. But every subsequent patient after that, we set up an entire unit to be able to take care of Ebola patients. That unit was ran in collaboration with Dr. Fauci, okay? Yeah. Dr. Fauci, what I can say is, from the videos, I did not work for Emory at the time, but now that I am there, you look at the videos from Dr. Fauci in educating those nurses and doctors. He was on that task force to be able to teach them how to gown up and suit up to be able to go in there to take care of Ebola patients. Yeah. And during that video, he was the first person to go in the room, the very first person. And he did that, he said, because he wanted to let people know that his technique was tried and true, and he would not send them to do anything, his students and himself, to do anything that he wouldn't himself do. Yeah. And so I don't believe that he would risk his entire reputation for Donald Trump. There's no relationship there, in my opinion. Yeah. I think he has much more to lose than Trump does.
Absolutely he does. But even
you see what I'm saying? I think he has
to obviously worry about, because most people who speak out against what Trump says, they get an ugly tweet about it, or they get their reputations do get tarnished to a certain degree by him and his administration, who goes on record and goes into the public to their podiums or whatever, speaking out against that particular person or those particular individuals and saying, well, they were wrong all along, and they said this and they said that, and we're saying this, but so you ain't wrong about nothing, but he's wrong about everything. You're not even a doctor of any kind, but yet you have more to say about this shit than he does. It makes entirely no sense to me.
It makes no sense. And so, no, but when they realized that this was communicably being spread, they came out and said, okay, we need to change course on this no mask thing, okay? Now, what I think they need to take heed about is they knew this virus was circulating in China, okay? They knew this virus was circulating in China, and they had people on the ground that let them know that this virus was spreading, right, very rapidly. So that would suggest that this virus has to be airborne some kind of way. When you know, me, as I put on my scientific, hat, I'm thinking like, there is no way a virus is gonna spread like this in such a short period of time. It has got to be, you start thinking about air, you start thinking about water, and you start thinking about food, okay? Those are your main vectors. And you like, oh my God, if this thing is airborne, it's gonna be widespread.
Catastrophic.
It's gonna be catastrophic. It's gonna be catastrophic. So I think they were under the guise that this was solely droplet, but the more we treat patients, the more I'm questioning that it's droplet only. I think that for the most part, you wearing a face mask, and I'm going to demonstrate how you should take off your face mask and how you should actually put it on before we get off this podcast. But
I need that. Yeah, we definitely need to see that.
But I'm thinking that most of it could be droplet, but I do think it's a small it's a small portion of this virus that if you sneeze, that can end up being very tiny particles that float in the air for much longer than we anticipate.
Yeah.
And I do think that people are then going in, like, let's say, I'm just going to use a space that troubles me in the hospital, our break room, right?
Okay.
If anybody is positive in there, the one time that we're not in our mask is when people are trying to eat. You see what I'm saying? And inherently, if the person's next to you, if you're me, I'm going to say, hey, how you doing? I'm talking to you and I'm expelling whatever droplets that are in my mouth, right? So now we're both vulnerable right now. You don't have on a mask. I don't have on a mask, right? We're trying to be polite towards one another. We're in a conversation. I do think that those minute droplets are hanging out in the air. And I do think that people can breathe that in through their mucous membranes, their eyes, nose, and mouth, and become affected.
Now, how long would those little droplets stay, or would you say how long do they stay in the air, right? Or how long do they generally stay versus what may have changed about this virus?
At least 2 hours.
2 hours.
At least 2 hours. If they're smaller than that, what we've been told is if we've had to, let's say, intubate a COVID-19 patient, right, in their room, let's say they wasn't doing well, we ended up coding the patient, they had to be intubated and put on the ventilator. We are not to go in that room in the first 6 hours without an N95 mask, because as you're pumping on people's chests, as you're intubating people, you have to be in their throat. All of that sputum now has been exposed in the room, and they have told us 6 hours. Up to 6 hours, we must wear our N95 mask. After that 6 hours, we can go back to our surgical mask. So I would say to you, if you're out running, you don't know who was running the trail before you got there.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So that makes sense.
Right. You don't know who was running the trail before you got there, how much heavy sweat or how much heavy anything they're breathing is in the air. Are they releasing droplet particles that fall into the ground, or are they releasing aerosolized particles that's kind of floating and blowing with the wind in the air? Because that's going to travel if you add wind as a factor.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
I would say if it was me, cousin, I would wear a mask. Personally.
Okay. And I'm going to take your word for that, and I'm obviously defer to you in that regard and start wearing my mask whenever I do my cardio around my neighborhood, because it's no particular track that we're around. I just like run around my entire neighborhood and get 3 miles in, but you know, it's often as I can.
You can. You know, some people feel like if they're breathing in, they can't get a good breath. I would say a regular surgical mask may not be. It's too thin, so as you breathe, it's going to collapse on itself. But maybe a good cloth mask.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Yeah, and so obviously we're seeing, and I'm appreciative of what I'm seeing out of people who are taking the initiative to wear masks. But some of them are doing it more as a fashion statement. They want to have it match their damn clothes. You know, okay, well, what are the recommendations for the types of masks, right? So you have some of the masks that I'm seeing from like the masks that construction workers use when they're obviously doing construction on certain sites. You have those cloth masks that obviously have like certain filters in them. I've even seen the mask tests where people would wear a mask and say, okay, if you can breathe through it, or you can blow a candle out through your mask, that's not the recommended mask that you should wear. So I think that there needs to be some clarity on the types of masks that we should wear that would safely kind of keep us at bay from even contracting the
virus. The thing about the mask is a couple things. So we talked about the droplets being heavy. You seen the masks with the little filters on them? They have like the little.
That's the one I have. I have one of those filters. Yeah.
The ones with the little filters on them, we're not allowed to wear in the hospital. The ones that have the filters on the outside, because what that mask does is blow all of the air that you're breathing out the mask through the filter. You see what I'm saying? So it really is not protecting anybody. It's protecting you, but it's not protecting anybody else. So if you want a mask that kind of keeps all your sputum to you and somebody else sputum themselves, and just think if all of us wore a filter mask, all of our sputum becomes on the outside of the mask. It does anybody no good. Yeah. So the ones with the filters with the holes, I wish I had a picture of one. We don't want to wear those. Okay. You want to wear the ones, I'm going to walk you around because I want to show you.
Okay. Yeah.
The mask that I have here by the front door.
Okay.
I have a whole mask set up here. I don't know if you can see this drawer. So you have this. It says, please use hand sanitizer.
Okay. I love the whole setup that you have and making sure that everybody in the house abide by these rules. And that's something that everyone needs to be taking full advantage of, like making sure you're actually mandating that everyone do these certain steps and take these precautions in your house.
In your own home, right? So here is my hand sanitizer. It's
Right.
sitting right here. It's available for people to be able to use, right?
Yeah, we got hand sanitizer all over the damn house. Every
All
room,
over the house.
we got a bottle of hand sanitizer.
Absolutely. If you're coming in here in these little buckets, I have a thermometer cover, I have the little gun thermometer, and then I have masks for people to put on. I have shoe coverings and head coverings. Everything is in this drawer. Okay?
Wow, that is something to invest in at a time like
this is how you gotta live.
Yeah, absolutely. At least until we get a better handle on this, because America the Great, the America the Bold and the Beautiful, we seem to have the least handle on this damn virus compared to our other counterparts out there in the other countries. It's like they have a better handle on it, and they're looking at us like, "Well, you America, right?
What are you doing?"
What
Especially
are you all not doing?
Brown people, because we're heavily affected. So I would say to anybody that is an essential worker, right? So you're out, you're keeping food on our shelves. You enable us to be able to eat. Whenever you're out there, you have a possibility of exposure. You need to make sure you're in a mask, right? The way that you touch your mask and the way that you clean your hands should be a sequence at all times. So that lets you know that anytime your hands come up to your face, that they're clean, okay?
Yep.
I want to show you the surgical mask. So this is the ones I'm saying. If you are running in these, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it, yeah.
Can you see that? The lighting in here is not very good, but
okay. That's
those masks, these masks, if you're running, these probably are going to collapse on themselves, right? Because they're so thin. That's why I say if you are going out running, just get you a regular cloth mask that you can throw into the wash and just wash it. Okay. Not the ones with the filter, because all your breath is coming out of those. Okay. So don't wear these, but I want to show you if you have any kind of mask. I also have bought, because people say that these things kill their ears. Well, from Amazon, you can get these for 99 cents. You can get these to put on the back of your mask. And I bought these for everybody in the house. And I keep some extra for people who come over. You see these?
Yeah, I see those. Yep.
These go on the back of your head.
Okay.
And then you loop the ends to them like this.
Okay.
When you put your mask on.
So that way it's not on your ears.
It's not on your ears.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
You have those, and then you have a cheaper version. I believe those were $2, but then these are 99 cents. Let me show you. And you also can do the exact same thing with this kind.
Okay.
It fit right on the back of your head.
It's kind of like a little snapback thing. So yeah, okay.
Yep. Yeah. You can either put it on your head or you can bring it down here and put it on your neck. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And that'll just get it off your ears where it's more comfortable to wear. If it's not comfortable, no, you're not gonna want to wear it.
No,
you got to do things to make the mask comfortable for yourself, right?
Yeah. But the point is to wear it so that we can have a better handle on it.
If you're an essential worker, you should wear your mask, in my opinion.
Yeah.
My medical opinion, you should wear your mask even at home to protect your family. Yeah, because absolutely. You don't really know what you've been exposed to out there. Okay, so if you, meaning when I say wear it at home, if you feel like you've had a high risk exposure while you've been at work, then wear your mask. Yeah. Okay, wear your mask for a few days when you're at home, and if you're not symptomatic in those few days, then you can take the mask off. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you will begin to start, if you were actually infected, you will begin to show symptoms between 4 to 6 to 7 days. You see what I'm saying? So if you feel like, you're like, oh my God, this person coughed in my face. I don't even know if I've been infected or not. I'm not really sure. You know,
it's crazy too. When back then, or at least maybe 3 or 4 months ago, we used to say, bless you when we saw somebody sneeze. Now we see somebody sneeze, we be like, all right, now it's your last damn time doing that. Now don't do that no more. All right, now you might got that Rona. Black folks know how to make a joke out of any damn thing. We just funny like that. Despite all the things that we go through, obviously we're the most affected by this virus. And I just feel like, and this is part of the premise of this podcast, is to basically get the information out to the Black community that's needed the most. It's like I'm talking to people who are in these fields, in the trenches, making a difference, trying to make an immediate impact in the community, because we're the ones being affected the most by this situation.
Exactly. That's why I'm trying to get some education out there. So anytime you're getting ready to don your mask, let's say you have a mask with the ear loops, the first thing you want to do is make sure you clean your hands, okay? Because as you get to introducing this to your face, trying to fit it all around your nose and your ears, whatever's on your hand, but gets very close to your mucous membranes, okay? So number one, don't just throw your mask on, make sure your hands are clean first.
Absolutely.
Clean your hands. You want to get your mask here. And then when you put it on, you always want to just loop it by your ears and try not to touch anything else.
Yep.
This here should bend across your face and your nose. Just pull it down so you can see, okay? And then up under here, people always have it bunched up. No, pull it down.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So that it protects you way under here.
I mean, I've seen that so many times too, and then people sit up there cutting holes out the damn mask. It's not a damn mask if you're gonna cut a hole out of it for your mouth, you idiot. Like, that's stupid. What take it off then. You're gonna sit up here and not wear it, right?
Take it off.
That is, oh my God. We're so creative for the wrong damn reasons half the time. And then this is not even to talk about those who are just completely against mask wearing it in general. They're going out in public. You're seeing videos of people who are purposely going out with no mask on, coughing, yelling, screaming, spitting at people. I'm just like,
ridiculous.
You want the hell beat out of you if I see you doing that to me, lady. Like, you lost your damn mind.
You lost your mind.
And just be spitting and coughing on me on purpose.
Not when you have 153,000 deaths. Okay, so let me share this with you. I've had plenty of nurses to end up admitted to the hospital. My coworkers, okay? Wow. My coworkers that we end up having to take care of, okay? I've seen them be admitted and do very well, and I have had a co-worker, a few of them, to be placed on ventilators. I'm talking about no comorbidities, completely healthy in their 30s, okay? Be put on ventilators to the point where they have been in the ICU 30, 40 days before they are well enough to come off the ventilator to be able to go home. Do they go home? No, because once you've been on the ventilator that long, you need to learn how to walk again. Your muscles have atrophied. You haven't eaten anything. Wow. We have a PEG tube now that's feeding you through your stomach. We have you on all kind of drips. You haven't swallowed. You haven't done any of those things, okay? So your muscles in your throat are weak. We got to build that back up. Your leg muscles are weak. We got to build that back up. Those nurses and providers on the ventilators for that longer period of time have to go to acute rehab to learn how to get that range of motion and mobility back. They have not even been back to work yet, and it's been months. So this is not like, okay, I'm going to get the coronavirus and I'm going to be sick a couple of weeks and it's done. No, people are having lifelong challenges with this, especially young people that are ex-smokers and vapors, because their lungs are not at 100% when they encounter this virus. Okay.
Absolutely. And your respiratory system is already compromised with being a smoker, and having that virus in your system is going to exacerbate whatever ailments are already there. And so, from that standpoint, it's very. But we've
had some scary things happen too, Joey, where we've had patients that come in because we talked about those coagulopathies that have happened. People that were completely healthy were found down at home. The wife or the mother say, my child was doing such and such, and they was found down at home. And then we get them in and we put them in the CT scanner. They're already on the ventilator. They've had pulmonary embolisms. So they're throwing clots. And if you look at their medical history, completely healthy people. So we believe. So
by saying that, you're saying that it ain't just people with pre-existing medical who are at risk. It's those who are healthy too.
It's those that are healthy. That is what is concerning us about this virus. That is what is concerning us about this virus, okay? So signs and symptoms that warrant you to have to come to the hospital is if you are extremely short of breath and maybe you have a person like, like my husband who has allergies and things like that. Well, if you have allergies and this is truly an allergic condition, you should not have a temperature on top of it, okay? That is not indicative of, wow, I'm coughing and sneezing.
Right.
If your body is fighting an allergen or some type of pollen or anything like that, you should not have a temperature to match it, okay? Once you start having symptoms and you have a slight temperature, okay, and I'm saying a temperature is anything over 99.9, okay? So once you start getting to 100, 100.6, 101, those are red flags, okay? Yeah. You're symptomatic, you're draining, you have a temperature, you feel weak. Most people are coming in saying they feel just malaise, okay? Yep. They feel like they have muscle aches. They feel like they
lose their taste in food and like, yep. Yeah, their taste
buds. They can't smell anything anymore. We had somebody that came in with abdominal pain, okay? But remember, we were talking about those microclots. Yeah. And we believe every organ has vasculature and veins that's feeding oxygen to it. So if the liver start getting clots, you're going to be asymptomatic. You're going to be symptomatic, in your abdominal cavity, right?
Oh, yeah.
So those are things not to ignore, especially if you don't have a history of having any type of severe abdominal pain, or you don't have liver failure, or you don't have a kidney or gallstones, kidney stones, things like that. Anything for you to abruptly today start having severe abdominal pain warns you to come to the hospital. If you start having slight slurred speech, or if you start having where you just have fogged brain, you can't think, that is a sign of a stroke, okay? Even though it may not all the way be presenting as, I can't move my right arm, or I'm having weakness in my left leg. Sometimes those are warning signs that the vessel is not all the way occluded, but it's less oxygen getting there, and eventually it's gonna occlude, okay? Yeah. So come in if you're exhibiting signs and symptoms like that. Don't wait.
Okay. Yeah, wait. Absolutely, because the longer you wait, the more that situation can get a lot worse and a lot quicker. So I'm concerned though about the long-term and short-term effects of this virus. So, the one thing that's not being reported enough or being obviously broadcasted enough are the number of cases that people have, obviously successfully went through this virus and was able to recover. Top of it. The recovery it's pretty tremendous too to speak about. So it's like we're not speaking enough about the recovery and the recovery time for some people. Because I know some people personally who have had this virus, some who have recovered a lot quicker than others. But then there's been one or two people that I know that it took a few weeks for them to recover, but nonetheless they did recover from it.
They was able to bounce back.
Yeah. Why is this not being talked about enough about how people are recovering from this virus? Yes. And what are those, like, once you recover, are there any effects long-term or short-term that we need to be concerned?
Absolutely. The way this virus looks up under a CT scan, I purposely have my mask still on. I'm going to demonstrate how to take it off properly. But I want to talk through it so people understand that a mask is okay. I'm not short of breath. Oh my God, I can't breathe. I'm not breathing in carbon dioxide.
Nothing. You don't have trouble breathing.
No.
And if you were asthma, you wouldn't have trouble breathing with a mask on.
No.
Just making up a bunch of crap.
We just making up a bunch of stuff, and we just have to, inherently, we're not really used to wearing masks anyway, so it feels different from us, unlike China, who has the whole smog issue. They have grown accustomed to wearing masks every day. That's really not our existence, even though it probably should be with our air quality. But I'm just saying, I just threw that out there. Anyway, it's just something that we need to get used to, okay? But I'm not dying of short of breath right here, okay? That's why I still have it on. But yes, there are definitely long-term effects. COVID-19 looks very different than a pneumonia, a typical pneumonia. If I'm looking at your lungs on an X-ray or CT scan or MRI, okay? You have some classic indicators for people who are exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms, or even if they're symptomatic, but they ended up getting a CT scan because they were in an accident, and we just want to make sure they're not bleeding. Yeah. We can look at the lungs and see COVID-19 just like that. So much so that even if you test negative in my hospital, if you test negative, but I'm looking at your lungs under a microscope, I'm like, this is classic COVID. This patient is just not exhibiting symptoms yet. You're not going to a regular floor. You're going to we call it person under investigation, PUI unit, which means you're highly suspicious, okay? Because the lungs look like sharp glass. If you think about glass that has been stepped on, and it's in the middle, there's this density there, and then it actually shatters out like this. And as it shatters out, you see a density in the lungs, and then you see these web-like components coming out of it.
Yeah.
Also, you see this fluffiness that hugs the outside of the lung, the rib cage. Just like, it looked like little clouds under x-ray. Classic COVID symptoms. For whatever reason, this virus likes to attack the tissue that's on the outside lining of the lungs. So when people coming in and say, well, I think I may have pneumonia, you may, but when we look at it under the microscope, up under x-ray, we see that this is not just a normal pneumonia. This is COVID-19. It's classic COVID-19. And we can identify some of these patients just by diagnostic study without an MP swab.
Yeah.
So we need to start looking at, if we can't ramp up these nasopharyngeal swabs, what other tools do we have at our disposal to be able to diagnose patients quickly? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
X-ray and CT scan is one, but they're expensive methods. That's why they don't like to use that. It's very, very, look at my baby.
What's up, Jordan?
Say, hey.
What's up, man? Well, I hope you're staying safe during this time and listening to everything your mother is saying, who's in this field and know this field to an exact science.
To an exact science. Yep. So it looks really different. And so it's an expensive method. A nasopharyngeal swab is cheaper, but we need to ramp that up so that we can test people appropriately. So when they come in, the lungs take a hit. So the lungs look horrible. Okay. It's not a typical pneumonia. All right. Yeah. And on top of that, I wish I can just put a camera on my head and take you through a COVID unit so that you can hear the gasps of people that's trying to maintain their own sputum, the people that's trying to breathe through a congested chest, okay? We have multiple stages before they get to a ventilator. And actually now, if your O2 sats were a certain point and your blood gases were a certain point, we would put you on the ventilator. What we've seen is that when we do that, those patients are usually on the ventilator for months before we can get them off of it.
Wow.
So now our treatment plan is not to do that. Our treatment plan is not to do that. Our treatment plan right now is to try to maintain you as much as we can. And we do that by using oxygen, we use oximizer, we use Airvo, we use airflow, we do all of these different steps before you get to a ventilator, including now ECMO, which is another resource that we have at our disposal to be able to help people breathe. But people are having long-term effects of this, no doubt, because their lungs are ravaged and their organs are ravaged as well.
Now, this is another question I have about the vaccine, right? So on average, it takes about 18 months to 2 years to develop a vaccine successfully, right? And given the facts that we obviously have to get vaccinated every year with the flu, because it's an updated version of that flu each year. How concerned are you with the state that we're in right now as far as being able to say that we don't have a vaccine yet, but yet, well, flu season is just underway. Flu season just maybe a month and a half, 2 months away from now. The fact that we don't have a handle on this damn virus yet, we have to also now be concerned about the exacerbation of what the flu does on top of this virus. What would you say you're most concerned about, knowing that we don't have a vaccine or cure, if you will, for this virus yet, and now knowing that flu season is just a month or two away?
We're very scared. I'm going to tell you right now, we have partnered with the Society Critical Care Medicine Association.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about crisis nursing right now. And how are we going to manage an influx of patients, right? when you don't maybe have enough critical care nurses, or you don't have enough critical care providers, and you don't have enough ventilators, and you don't have, like, it's this big. And so what we have decided now is a team nursing approach to be able to handle all of this. And why are we doing that? Because we're preparing for a very egregious flu season on top of the COVID-19 surge. I would admonish everyone to get your flu shot this year. If you have never gotten a flu shot, this is the year that you roll up and get it, okay? You need to have some type of protection against the flu. The flu is supposed to be very bad this year. Last year, we lost 35,000 people to the flu. Just to the flu.
Just to the flu.
Just to the flu. And so, and a lot of those people had not gotten the flu vaccine. So what we do know is that the flu vaccine does not protect you. It's so many strains of the flu. But what the flu vaccine does is protect you against the 4 to 6 very common flu viruses that we have seen over the last 4 years. Okay. So every year we project what was prevalent last year. And then we say, okay, we need to project against that. And then we try to say, how is the flu going to shift over the summer? Like, is it going to change and this flu come up to the top? And so they estimate which flu is going to be the most prominent, okay? And then they protect you against, they couple those 4 or 5 viruses together and put it in one vaccine. So you hear people say, I got the flu shot, it was not effective. Well, it's a guesstimate of where the flu is going to be from one year to the next, okay? So it's based off last year's numbers. So just because we may not have gotten it fully right, maybe one of those viruses was not in the cocktail, didn't mean that you were not protected. Flu viruses are very similar. So if you get the flu vaccine, it's going to give you some protection of the one that didn't make it in the pie. Does that make sense?
Exactly. That makes perfect. Absolutely. And I'm glad you cleared that up too, because I've also had some concerns and my own trepidations about the flu vaccine. Obviously, I have my flu vaccine early this year. I made sure I got my shot early this year, like maybe around January or February or so. And everyone in my house, we all obviously have we are up to date with our flu vaccination. But even with the understanding that the coronavirus vaccination hasn't come out yet, but it's been a lot of advocacy for that vaccine to come out or even be expedited within 3 to 4 months. And with knowing that it takes 18 months to 2 years to come up with a successful vaccine, how is it that people, obviously the powers that be, think that people are going to be receptive to want to take a vaccine this early or this soon when the proper channels or even the proper steps to even making sure that the vaccine is successfully working hasn't even been done? You're expediting a vaccine that takes 18 to 2 years to produce in the 4 to 5 month span. Like, that's not safe. At least it don't sound safe to me. I could be wrong, but that doesn't sound safe, and that's not something that I would even, subject myself to, like, early on. I don't want to be one of the first ones to, all right, the first group of Black folks, y'all come in and take this vaccine for this virus, because I've been seeing certain medical experts and even Bill Gates, to a lesser degree, talking about how, Black people obviously should be the first ones to take this vaccine. And I'm like, hell no, I'm not. I'm not taking this vaccine first. I want some of these other folks to take these vaccines before I do, and let me know what the turnaround is and what the success of it is before I even subject myself to that, or allow my family to subject themselves to that as well.
Themselves to it. See, what has happened with the vaccines, though, is the same thing with the pharmaceutical companies, really, to be honest. To manufacture a drug takes years, right? It has to jump through all of these FDA loops. Then you have to do this trial and jump through another loop. Then they make you do this trial and jump through another loop. And then people are just angry when the price of the medication come out, but really it's the years upon research that has taken them to get to this point, and all the costs that they have spent to manufacture the product. Well, what they have done is, so just to ease your mind, what they have done is got rid of all of the administrative hurdles that people have had to take place to shorten the span so that people can focus on the research and not all of the administrative red tape that come along with producing the virus. If you extract that out, then all you're looking at is the raw research. Is it effective or not? Is it sound enough to move from phase 1 to phase 2? And, you know, and then once phase 2 get there, where you're doing this on animals and primates and all of that, you gathering your research, you're making sure that it's been peer reviewed, you're making sure that it's effective. Was it any serious safety concerns? Is the dose right? Is it not right? Do we add? Do we decrease? That phase 2 is where you're trying to work all of that out until you get to an effective dose. Yeah. Once you get there, it's like a dissertation. Now you get all your research, all your administrative stuff that you've done. Okay, you've already piloted the medication. Then you got to go defend it before the FDA, right? Yeah. That's an administrative burden. Is it safe? All we want to know, is it safe to move to the next trial?
Yeah.
And so as you can think about all these people that's coming up with all these medications, it's trying to get through the FDA. Now I can only argue my case for my trial on this date. It's like the Supreme Court. Okay, yep. You get to come and you argue this. Now you got to go back and work this case out of this. So give me more information. So what they have done is reduce the administrative burden of it. But the trials still must occur. The drugs must be safe to come from one trial to get to the next. And what the FDA has done is not just get rid of all the administrative hurdles. They've also put this as their #1 priority. Meaning, Kenya, her little medication that she was trying to get through has gone to the back burner right now. Anything that's not related to COVID, don't even come talk to us about it. We only focused on this one thing, and that is what has expedited these vaccine trials through the FDA right now. Not that they're cutting steps, but they have gotten rid of all the administrative stuff that probably, if we look at it, don't need to be there in the first place.
Yeah, probably
because so. That would get a lot of drugs and medications to people a whole lot faster, including cancer medication. It's people have died waiting on medications that are their last hope to get through trials that we have already proven is effective. You see what I'm saying? And people are like, I just hope this one trial get through. It's my last hope. Let people have a right to try it. If it's their last hope, give people the opportunity to do it. And the FDA need to do that with a whole lot of medications. And that's really what Bill Gates was saying. If we can expedite coronavirus medications and vaccines, why can't we do this with a whole lot of bacterial and things that are endemic to third world countries and all of this? Why can't we do that to go vaccinate the entire world so that they're not suffering?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what he was saying. Why can't we do that? We can. The answer is we can and we should.
Yeah.
That's the answer. We can and we should.
Okay, and I do appreciate that standpoint, because obviously there's been so much gray areas when it comes to just the expedition of the virus, the vaccine for the virus coming out, and obviously those different steps that you mentioned obviously are administrative steps that obviously are being taken out and being considered to be taken out and considered useless at this point, because
it's useless.
Just overall being able to expedite this medication, or any medication for that matter, to make sure people are getting it, but understanding too that these healthcare industries it's a business for them.
It's a business.
So they're not in the business of more so saving lives more so than they are in the business to making money. They want to make their money before even considered saving lives. And making money is going to save lives, and that's a different story. But it's like, my business is my business first.
Exactly.
It's a multi-billion-dollar corporation that obviously it controls just whether or not a person lives or dies based on the medication that they need. So
exactly. And that's why I believe, and this is my personal opinion, I don't believe that people that are in certain positions should be political appointees. I don't believe the political appointment of the FDA, you see what I'm saying, should be in a position. I don't, because then the way you focus on research depends on the guidance that's coming from the top, okay? So if you're saying, I want you to focus, I believe that people are dying for drugs, it's a national emergency because now it's affecting Caucasian Americans, whereas it was always affecting Black Americans. It wasn't a big deal till it started, okay. So now you've made that a priority. And so now what do the FDA do? They're like, okay, this is priority coming from up here because I'm a political appointee. That's what I'm going to focus on. However,
in the Black community, it could be something different that we need to focus on. Now, you done told me to put that on the back burner. That's why I think some of these roles don't need political appointees. Because politics should not be in it.
Yep. Because even from that standpoint, you think about it from this perspective, when a white person gets the flu, the Black people get the coronavirus. If white people get sick, we die.
Exactly.
We oftentimes at a disproportionate rate are impacted and affected more than any other race in this country, let alone in this world. But yet we're the ones being pushed as, okay, you're a secondary, need that we need to be focusing on. We're not going to tend to you until we tend to everybody else. And that's very disheartening to know that as a Black person, that we're not being treated as an equal civilian or just an equal human being from a standpoint of what we're being affected by the most.
Exactly. And we are the most disproportionately affected for a lot of health conditions, hypertension, diabetes, cancer, all of the things you like, oh my God. And that is really why this virus is ravaging us. Because it is not meant for you to encounter this virus. When you have those comorbid conditions, you go into this virus if you encounter it at 50% health, okay? This virus can just wipe out that other 50% because you're not at 100%. It's like getting in a ring with Muhammad Ali at 50%. You're going to get your behind toe up, okay?
You're still going to get the hell knocked out of you. I mean, hell, Roy Jones think he going to try Mike Tyson at 54. Man, please, man. You ain't seen that man work out at 54 years old. I almost peed on myself looking at how dangerously fast he was. I'm just like, damn. How is he still moving like this?
Could you imagine getting in the ring with one of them at 50%?
At 50%. And you're at 100%. Ain't nowhere near that 50 that they're at right now.
Exactly.
That's just, man.
And when you have those comorbid conditions, that's how you have to think of it. You're going into this, you're encountering this virus not at 100%.
Absolutely.
So it's like when you're playing video games, your energy level way down here. Well, it don't take much, Joey. It don't take much. See, and so because Black and brown people have been disproportionately ignored, let's just be honest, from a health perspective. We don't have even health insurance sometimes.
We don't.
We haven't been we don't have primary care managers. No. We can't even afford health insurance. My God, you can't get it through your job. It's all of these different things. And then we live in poor communities. We just trying to feed our family. I don't even have time to take care of myself. By the time you get to the hospital, it's usually an emergency.
Yep.
And you're using the ED as primary care, right? Because you don't have a normal doctor. So all of those things coupled together, plus we tend to be essential workers on the front line.
Yep.
Of course, Black and brown people who are on the front lines in factories, meat, the meat factories that's packaging the meat.
Restaurant industries.
The restaurant, stacking the shelves at Walmart and Publix and Kroger's. Of course, we're picking up people in Ubers.
Yep.
We're making money the best way we can. Of course, we're going to be affected, babe. We don't have a choice to, but we got to protect ourselves. Yeah. And the way we do it is 5 things we got to do. You must wear this mask that I've had on for the last 30 minutes and not choking.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm about to get to that. I want to ask you that question. So
you got to wear the mask.
Yep.
You got to wash your hands. You got to socially distance.
Yep.
You got to avoid crowds, okay? I don't really know how that I can say this in a way, right? You can't cluster together right now, okay? I understand you're used to doing it. I'm used to doing it.
I am too.
We're a close family.
We all are. Yep.
We like to be around one another. We actually enjoy each other's company, okay?
Absolutely.
But we can't
some more than others.
Some more than others.
I won't speak on who those some are.
We won't call the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
But we can't do it right at the moment. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we gotta separate a little bit. And then if you're gonna be together, like I have corporate meetings all the time, we've reduced a lot of our meetings to Zoom, but there's some things we must meet in person to vote on. Okay. Yep. Those meetings where we have to do that, You know what I'm saying? We have to still be socially distanced, and we try to go outside. If you can't, the virus is going to amass itself inside. But if you can at least get outside, that's your safest place. So those are 5 things. Outside if you can, socially distance, wear a mask, clean your hands, and avoid crowds and bars and all of these other things people want to do, all these social gatherings. You got to do them 5. And if you do that, we tend to be okay. The signs and symptoms, again, that warns you to come in, constant headaches could be a sign of a stroke, okay, especially if you don't have a history of headaches. Any type of, if your lips are turning blue or black, if the whites of your eyes begin to turn yellow, if you lose your sense of smell, taste, all of those are red flags. If you have a temperature, definitely that's the beginning stages. Usually that's all it takes is a temperature, okay? Yeah. And then if you have allergies and you have if you have allergies, you shouldn't have a temperature. If you have temperatures and then allergy type symptoms, that's a red flag, okay? Yeah. And definitely if you're having any type of breathing problems and shortness of breath, don't play with that, because we can go down fast. I just told you about the patient I was talking to. I go check on another patient and then they coding the patient who was just talking to me. Wow. They go down fast. So don't play around. If you're black and brown, don't play around. Hey, absolutely. I like that.
I love that slogan. Yeah, I'm gonna make sure I hashtag that for this episode. If you're black and brown, if you're black and brown, don't play around. Don't play around. I love that slogan, because obviously we're seeing so many people who are not receptive and just pushing back the whole idea and the premise behind wearing a mask, saying, well, I don't need to wear a mask, and if it is God's will, so it be, and life is short. Well, hell, it's about to get pretty damn shorter for you.
Ridiculous is that. Look at Herman Cain.
I'm about to get to that too. So before I get to that segment, I want to ask you this question about the recent Black doctor that's from some part of Africa. I can't remember where she's from. She recently came out, made some ridiculous ass comments about how the hydroxychloroquine cures the coronavirus, and how wearing a mask or something about having alien sex with people, and it's just I don't even remember what the hell ridiculous saying. It was so just ridiculous. I'm like, okay, what, lady, what? How much he paying you to say this shit? Because now he's just like, well, she's had a pretty good heart, and she pretty much knows what she's talking about. I don't know the woman personally, but I just like what she was saying. She seems to know what she's talking about. She's a medical expert. Would you shut the hell up listening to any damn body that's going to agree with you?
And let the science, the world is, look, they had this saying from one of our critical care calls when they were talking about, and they even had it on the news, where a doctor says, I don't know how long it takes to make an N95 mask, but I can tell you how long it takes to make a doctor. And I can tell you how long it makes a nurse. And I can tell you how long it makes a nurse practitioner and a clinical nurse specialist and a scientist. And look, these people have been doing this for a very long time.
Very long time.
You have clinical experts. Let them do their job. Let them do their job. I would admonish anybody on here that's getting advice from non-medical professionals to disengage in that. Because what you want in this moment is not a whole bunch of political antics. You don't want the hyperboles. You don't want any of that. You want somebody to give it to you straight.
Yep. And what we get from these politics, from all these politicians being so hyperbolic about certain things about mandating masks and not mandating wearing a mask. Well, people should decide on their own. Listen, first off, you're a politician. You have no say so in this medical field. And clearly you have no handle on this shit from a political standpoint.
No, you
seem to still not have a handle on this. But yet you're telling, well, Dr. Fauci, he's only one expert. We should just be listening to one expert. Well, hell, I will listen to one expert before I listen to 100 political experts.
Exactly. And the thing is, there's more than Dr. Fauci's out here.
It is.
It's more
it's not saying he's the cure-all, he's the one-all to end all. But then he would be one of those who you should be listening to.
Exactly. And the other thing too, don't get your how you gonna live your life and take care of your family, okay? Because Herman Cain lived his life listening to people telling him he didn't need to wear a mask, telling him that it was okay to travel, not explaining to him that he was once had stage 4 cancer.
So so let me get to that. So before you go further, let me introduce you to this segment I like to call I'm Finna Cuss. So Herman Cain was a former Republican presidential candidate.
He was.
In fact, 74 years old, decided to not only support the dumbass in Tulsa, Oklahoma, going to his rally when he shouldn't have had the damn rally in the first place. Sitting in a section filled with black folk, most of them who were not wearing masks. You're 74 years old. Now, I'm going to say this with the utmost sincerity that I can possibly muster at this particular point in time.
First of all, you black and brown.
First, you're black and brown. Then you're 74. Then you had just beat cancer at 74. Now, I can't remember what exact cancer it was.
It was colon cancer.
Colon cancer, okay. Stage 4 colon cancer, you beat that, right? At 74, you put yourself at risk. Now, I'm going to truly say this with the utmost sincerity. I don't feel so sorry for him as I do his family. My condolences to his family, but I can't feel too sorry for him when he made his choice. He made the damn choice to go to this damn rally that was completely just pointless as shit. The only purpose for this rally was to basically glorify this stupid bastard who wanted to just see people congratulate him on whatever false narrative that he's putting out there to make people believe. And then not to mention, you're sitting in a section full of black folks who ain't wearing no damn mask in the first place. They're out there taking pictures. They're out there dancing to Michael Jackson. Out there just having a damn full out blast, like it's a damn family reunion of some sort. And then people out there wearing masks. I don't tell how many of those people who actually contracted the virus or who even gave him the virus to contract in the first place. But now you died proving the damn point. I don't know what the hell the point was, but you died proving it. So you want to blame anybody for this shit? Blame him. Blame Trump. Blame his administration for this shit. They are the ones who killed him for this. And his family should be suing Trump for even allowing him to even be at that rally in the first place. They should be making sure he flipped the damn bill for his damn funeral. Because now, dealing in this pandemic, we're seeing people on a day-to-day basis who are dying that their families can't even give them a proper send-off because they're being told you can't have a funeral that consists of all these people there. People can't be in churches. People can't even be outside congregating with a large number of people at one time. During this time, it's like, damn, are we not? All the evidence is there. But yet we're still seeing people ignoring this shit and saying, I'm just going to go about my merry day, how I usually operate, when like there's no pandemic that we're dealing with. And so, again, I feel sorry for Herman Cain's family, but you made the damn choice being there, praising this stupid bastard, and then on record saying, this was a hoax. This wasn't real. So I guess I'm sorry to be insensitive, but I guess you being dead ain't real either then, huh? Like, listen, I really hate it because I'm a huge advocate for humanity, and I value human life. But I can't value your life more than you do when you sat up here and said this damn virus wasn't real to fucking begin with. Right. This is bullshit. Like, we can't sit up here and feel sorry for people who made choices that ultimately ended fatally for them, right? Because that was your choice. You had the choice to wear a damn mask, or hell, here's a better one, not take your ass there at all. You should have been there. You were 74 years old. You had no business being there.
So now we talked about those 5 things he should have did, right?
5 things. 2 damn things. Again, 2 + 2 is 4, can you? It ain't gonna never be 5. It damn sure ain't gonna be 3.
No. And it's so sad because I said to myself, out of all the people there, Lord.
All the people.
All the people there. I said, Lord, Black people,
What are we doing there in the first damn place?
I said, this virus is just going through us. And if this is not proof that Black people are disproportionately affected, you got Black people, the Black person who attended the rally.
Yep.
Is the one.
You can't make this shit up now. You can't make this up.
I'm trying
to just died from this.
Exactly. And what we're seeing, I'm seeing that even in the hospital. Listen, it is horrible for nurses. It's horrible for my nurses to have iPhones trying for people to see their loved ones and talk to their loved ones when you know that you're looking at the monitors and you like, this not gonna end well. And it's hard. It's very draining for nurses to do this day in and day out. We currently are not allowing family members into the hospital. The only time family members can come into the hospital is if we believe that the loved one is not going to make it. And we allow them to come in to say their goodbyes. And then they have to say goodbye and go home. But that doesn't help the people who crash and burn on us in the middle of the day or overnight. Nobody can get there fast enough to be able to do that. Now you got to suit people up because we've been doing CPR, all of these things. Remember, you can't just walk in the room.
Nope.
So now we have to suit loved ones up and have them in all of the stuff we would wear in the room to be able to go in the room and say goodbye to their loved one. This is tragic.
Very, it's very disheartening. It's the psychological and emotional toll it takes. That's not even bringing up the physical toll it's taking, right? So obviously we wake up every single day being Black. Being Black is just so damn exhausting, right? So we're the basically going through this pandemic and then going through racism in America with police brutality that's going on, all of the riots and the protests is going on too. We having to wake up, for most of us who still have a job, we sit up here still have to be professional on our jobs, all while going through all this shit. It's
right.
Like we had to put all that aside. We still got to maintain a certain level of professionalism, right? We still got to be able to do our jobs, still be able to effectively deliver those deliverables that's being emailed to us on an every damn day basis, but yet still have to just basically hone in on all this emotional trauma and mental trauma that all of this is taking on us.
Yes.
Dealing with the fact that we have relatives and friends and coworkers who, to a lesser degree, who are dealing with this pandemic, but personally, like going through the motions, hoping that they survive it. This is just.
How do you think even healthcare professional feel when you have to treat your own coworkers? When you have to treat your own coworkers.
Has conflict of interest gone out the window when it comes to this pandemic?
I mean, it's out the window. If you are sick at work, we can't. It's illegal for us not to treat you. We have to treat you. Yeah. You know, now you can decide that you don't want anybody to have any information. You can be no information only. Where even staff can't come up to see you, but we know you're here in the hospital. You understand what I'm saying? It's a tragic situation where you're trying to take care of people you work with.
Shouldn't that be something that you know though? Like, I feel like as medical experts, and obviously you've been in the hospitals, everyone should be on notice of who has it and who doesn't, just so they can take extra precautionary steps to making sure that they don't have it.
We know, because guess what? We're contact tracing, Joey. So if once it's get it, I have to trace what patient she took care of.
Yeah.
Okay, because now they may need to be tested.
Yep.
If she was taking care of non-COVID patients, they need to be tested. Okay. Then who did you eat lunch with? Who was your nurse buddy that day? When they have buddies, when I go to lunch, you take my phone, and when you go to lunch, I take your phone. Okay. So you were in close contact with that nurse. What tech was working with the patient, with that nurse? You know what I'm saying? Did you go down to radiology? Which radiology room was you in? Which radiologist did you talk to? You know, we contract trace every incident of employee contracting this virus potentially in the hospital. We've had to shut down units before, okay? Yeah. Because we've had an outbreak amongst staff members, from doctors all the way down to tech. We had to close the whole unit and helo patients to another hospital. Okay, it's that serious. Then we had to have environmental services coming in and clean the whole unit. This virus is very communicable, okay? It's very contagious. So if you're in somebody's close proximity, chances are you're gonna get it. You gotta avoid crowds, okay? You gotta, keep yourself safe the best way you can. You have to wear a mask. You absolutely have to socially distance. I hate to say it, but we got to do those things.
We have to do what we have to do until we don't have to do it any damn more. But it's unfortunate that society is going to do the best that they want to do, not the best that they can do. And that's why we're not getting out of this anytime soon. And if we keep this shit up, we're not going to get out of the year 2020 until 2025 if we keep this up.
But
I'm even reading on CNN. CNN reported that their doctors at a Texas hospital along the U.S.-Mexico border may decide to send coronavirus patients home to die by their loved ones due to the limited resources. You're sitting up here telling me a hospital that don't have that's lacking resources to even help help patients recover from this virus. Now they're sending patients home to die because they're not able to even fully recover from it, or they don't have the bandwidth and resources to even help them recover. You know how disheartening that is?
That's right. And the other thing too is no healthcare workers need and want to make a decision like that.
Nobody should have to.
No, because the Hippocratic Oath teaches us to do no harm, right? We don't want to do harm to patients. We want to do good. And anything that prevents us from being able to do that, it tugs at us. When we lose a patient, it tugs at us. If I have to talk to a loved one and they ask me repeatedly, how do you think my loved one is going to do? And you have to then rely on something in you to be able to inspire them to continue to hope, but then give them a dose of reality too. You have to say, anytime your loved one is presenting this way, now today, let's say they're having seizures that came out of nowhere, it's indicative of lack of oxygen to the brain. And that means he could have a brain injury related to no oxygenation. And the seizures is an outward form of that. That means it's severe, okay? And so you have to say, hope, but let me give it to you. Because I don't want you to just, think that somehow if he pulls through this, he may have a severe brain injury and he may not be the same. And you got to understand that. You know what I mean? And so all of those conversations are very needed. It's difficult, but you do it with an ounce, you do it with a dose of love, and you try to exhibit empathy. What I see from this administration is a lack of empathy altogether. Absolutely. They don't have empathy.
They don't have a moral compass.
They don't have a moral compass, and they don't have, they are not healthcare professionals, and they're not healthcare professionals leaning. They need to get associated with people on the ground, people in the hospitals, people that are losing patients on a daily basis, people that are talking to family members who now can't be at the bedside. You're the bridge between their loved one, you see what I'm saying, and their doctors, and you're going back and forth trying to make sure that they have the appropriate care. Just think if you were there to advocate for your loved one, you would say, okay, do this, do that, don't do this. We're trying to do that long distance and then keep people updated. And then you have nurses who are emotionally attached. They're drained by the time they go home. They're absolutely drained. And then they still have to worry about how they're going to get their kids to school. If school's going to even open. Should they stop at the store on the way home? Do they think that they might have been exposed with patient in bed 6 because now you want me to get a COVID test when he is on a non-COVID floor? Why are we getting a COVID test? Oh, he started having symptoms. And you're like, okay, I've been in the room with this patient with just a surgical mask. You know what I mean? Now we want to do a COVID test. Now was I exposed? See? And then if I think I'm exposed, when I come home, guess what, Joey? For 4 days, I'm wearing my mask, even in my own home.
Even in your own home.
Because I'm trying to prevent my own family from getting sick. So it's stress at home. It's stress at the grocery store with everybody else trying to keep safe. It's stressful. Should I work out here? It's stressful.
It's stressful that we can't travel anywhere, go on vacation. Listen, I had to cancel 3 trips this year. So out the country. So obviously, I want to travel just as much as the next person.
Me too.
But at the same time, I don't want it to come at the cost of my life. That trip can wait. Damn it, I know it ain't my time to go right now because I got too much to do. So I know God ain't gonna take me, and I know He ain't gonna let me leave out on this note, not because of this. So I'm gonna do everything I need to do to prevent me from leaving out this way. And I'm encouraging other people to do the same thing.
Do the same, and it doesn't make you less than. I heard the pastor say he was gonna have his service because God is gonna protect him. I said, listen.
See, here's the thing about that, and I'm gonna have in my next episode, I'm gonna have my pastor on, and we're gonna speak about this pandemic from a spiritual standpoint. Okay. Because I want to help people understand. Even biblically, it talks about during the Passover. The whole idea of a Passover is you stay in the house, right? Stay in until the spirit of death passes over your house.
Exactly.
Now, again, so if you want to talk about biblical and talk about just being religious in general, okay, talk about that then. Don't leave that out. No, because the Bible just told you that in order for you to not be affected by this, losing your firstborn during the Passover, you have the spirit of death passing through your house. Obviously, you take a sacrificial lamb and you spread the blood on top of your door, and then allow that spirit of death to pass over. That's what that is. Don't give me that religious stuff claiming, oh, well, the blood of Jesus don't cover me. No, see, you're being stupid because God not only blessed you with life, but He blessed you with common sense. At least I thought He did, because now I'm of the mindset that we're living in situations where common sense is actually rare sense, because everybody ain't born with it. Everybody ain't built with it. Everybody don't come equipped with common. If it was common, then damn it, everybody would have it. But clearly, we seeing everybody ain't got it.
Exactly.
And even with this pandemic, but people want to travel and vacation and all the other shit. Okay, you know what? The reality is this, Kenya. People won't get it until they get it.
I know.
That's the reality. That's not me wishing it on anybody. I'm not wishing it on anybody whatsoever. But I'm being realistic. People want to learn things the hard way, especially us. After all the shit we've endured during this time, and during other times prior to this, we still learning shit the hard way. I want people to take from this episode that obviously leaning more towards your medical expertise in this matter, and giving us those 5 steps, those 5 simple steps that we can all adhere to and abide by, and just simply do, just so we can flatten the curve. Even if we flatten it a tad bit, damn it, that's progress. If we continuously do that, then we'll flatten the curve by a landslide, months on.
Let me say it like this. The more you flatten the curve, when you have this great influx of patients coming into the hospital at one time, okay, people are going to die that wouldn't normally die.
Yep.
People are going to die that if they would have come next week, okay, wouldn't die. Because resources, number one, won't be scarce.
Yep.
Staffing, number one, you're thin on staffing because you got all these patients. We trying to figure out which patients that we trying to color code patients. Okay, we need to do 6 first. We need to go and do this one next based off of symptoms. Where if we had the time to just focus on Joey, you understand what I'm saying? Yep. You can get all of my 100% attention to attend to your needs. Okay,
and I sympathize with those kids who are in the medical schools now, going through this right now. It's like now everything that you were just learning prior to this, now most of that's being put on hold for the most part, just to tend to this priority. This is the number one priority now.
So let me just explain this. In critical care, I have 1 critical care nurse to 2 patients. You understand what I'm saying? To 2 critically ill patients, because
1 nurse
I need eyes on them. And my nurse sits right in the middle of them both. And so she has eyes both ways. Now what we seeing is my 1 nurse has the whole 4 beds here. She running between 4. If you create this insurgence of patients, the standard of care has to change, okay? Because we have to be able to fully take care of the patients. We didn't grow staff overnight.
No.
Okay. We did not grow staff overnight. So what I'm saying is, if people do not do what they need to do to flatten this curve, people are going to die that would normally not have died.
Yep.
Because resources are scarce, and resources don't mean just ventilators and equipment. It's staffing resources.
Absolutely.
You have to have appropriate staffing levels to take care of patients.
Yep, you do.
And I'm trying to tell people that when you don't wear a mask, you stress the healthcare system.
You sure do.
And we're doing the best we can. We're doing the best we can. It kills me to have to put a 30-year-old in a body bag, but I have done it. And not just that, I have to take a biohazard sticker, right? After we get them cleaned up and zip the bag and put the biohazard sticker on them so that I can alert the doctor that's going to perform the autopsy that this is a COVID patient so that they can be geared up to unzip the bag.
Yeah.
This is not good. I have had my hospital and other hospitals in the city have trucks with coolers outside because our morgues are overrun.
That is just so unfair.
I hate to be blunt, but I don't know another way to say it.
No, this is the whole purpose of this podcast, is to be blunt about this and be very much so open and honest about it, because we're having too many people with too many differences in opinions. And this ain't about no damn opinions. This is about facts. It's not about living in fear. It's about living in fact. And the fact is, we don't have a handle on this. And the number of deaths are ongoing right this second. We just said it's 153,000. It's probably close to 154 now. And that's within the 2 hours we've been doing this show.
Yeah,
that's the most unfortunate part. And so we have to do our parts. We can't leave it all to the political officials who are in these offices, who don't give a damn about us, quite frankly, if you think about it. But they care more about their own agenda being pushed from a political standpoint rather than the agenda of the American people who need to be.
But this is a pandemic. It's nothing political about a pandemic.
Nothing political about this.
Nothing political about keeping people safe.
Yep.
Nothing political about making the right decision to send kids to school or not, when we are exponentially increasing in cases. So let me say one other thing, because what I keep hearing being perpetuated in the media is that, the cases, the numbers of positivities is high because we're doing more testing, okay?
That's the stupidest shit I ever heard. Because we're testing more so you telling me if we didn't test this much, that we wouldn't have this many cases? They don't decrease the cases. They just decrease the amount of people we tested who actually had the damn virus.
Exactly.
That logic, that's not even a logic. That's the stupidest shit I ever heard in my life. I've never heard something stupid.
It's ridiculousness. And what I want to say to that is, we are doing more testing. I gave you the scenario about the person who came in asymptomatic, but because we're testing all of our inpatients, you got to test anyway. And you're positive. Oh, I'm positive? Yeah, you're positive. You're asymptomatic and you didn't even know. So we are testing more because of that. And so, yes, our tests have less. I'm just going to throw a number. We were doing 1,000 tests, right? Now we're doing 2,000. Now, out of that 1,000 that we were doing before we were testing everybody, we only had a 10% positivity rate. So even though we were doing 1,000 tests, only about 100 people ended up being positive, right? So now we're doing 2,000 tests. So how many positivity rates should I get if my positivity rate stay the same? 200 cases, right? Because now I'm doing
it go up another 10% each 1,000, about 1,000.
But the problem is, Joey, that yes, we are testing more, but our positivity rate is 30%. So what does that tell you? There's more people positive than before than we've ever had. So that means it is not just more testing, it's that our positivity rate is increasing threefold. We are testing now. Instead of me having 200 cases, out of my 2,000 cases, I have 600 people that are positive. So it's not just about the number of tests, it's the positivity rate. Right now in the state of Georgia, our positivity rate, I believe, is 29%. That's 30%. That's high. You cannot open, the goal is 10. The goal is 10, and for places that are endemic is 5. So right now we are too high to even consider opening schools. So you got to get the medical facts from the medical people.
Yep.
And so if you're getting facts from anybody else, I would say don't do it. Tell them to call you and you call me and we'll do a three-way because I'll give it to them straight.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you said it too. So the last point to this before we go, I want to make sure that I'm clear about this. So I'm pretty sure you've been having people reach out to you, whether it be on social media or even just, just every day passing by or whatever. So if people have medical questions as it pertains to this virus, is there a way to reach out to you? Is there a resource that people can reach out to per se that I need to obviously educate and enlighten my listeners on, or even be able to disperse that information out to them so they can, call that hotline or check out that website or anything like that? Are there any medical resources to basically suggest to the listeners and followers of this show?
Unlike the White House, I'm going to refer everybody to the CDC. If you get to the CDC website, the CDC is like your umbrella of all the resources that are out there. It gives you day-to-day updates, okay, on where you're positive and where you're not. Also, Google has been doing that. I don't know if you've noticed that if you type in Google in the state of Georgia, COVID-19 in the state of Georgia, Google will give you the statistics, and they pulling that data from the CDC and putting it right out there on Google so you can see it. It's amazing what they're doing.
Yeah, they are, and they even condition it just based on your location. Like if they already had your notification on your location already enabled, then it automatically sends you to that information for that particular state that you live in. So that's actually a pretty cool, neat feature.
It's pretty cool. They doing it. It's pretty cool. But the CDC, if you click on some of their website, they'll take you out. Here in Georgia, you also have the Georgia Department of Health and the Georgia Department of Public Health. If you go to their website, they give you all resources. They give you posters to be able to put up. They make it so easy for you to be able to find out where your COVID testing sites are. All of it is right there. They have a 1-800-349, I think, COVID number that's out right now. If you need to go to a testing station or you're trying to find out where your closest testing station is, they have nurse advice lines that you can actually call. If you're trying to figure out, is this one of the symptoms that Kenya talked about that I need to go in? You can call any hospital. There's a nurse that is triaging the front desk. You can triage people right over the phone and they'll give you advice whether you need to come in or not. Okay.
Okay. That's good. Yeah.
If you go to Emory website has a whole COVID-19 section, right? And even when they start releasing and lessening the rules in the state of Georgia, Emory Hospital said we're not lessening anything. That's why we still don't allow patients in. Patients and their family members, not patients, we're taking patients, but their family members cannot come. So we did not remove that. We didn't lift it. Also, we're still required to wear masks at all times. Now they've added face shields. Now we have to wear face shields.
I'm seeing that now too. Yep.
We had a propensity to get it in our eyes because of those micro droplets that we were talking about, that when I walk in the room, I may walk right into it. So now I have to wear a whole face shield when I'm at work. And I'll show you, I wear head coverings and the whole 9 yards when I'm working. So when I work, I look a little bit like this on a daily basis, just so that you know, when I'm there, I'm all geared up. I don't have a choice but to be all geared up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I'm there, I look a little bit like this. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I see it. Yep.
My goggles?
Yep. Everything. The whole 9 yards. Yep.
Shoe covers, the whole 9 yards.
Because you have to protect yourself and you have to protect the patients too. So being in those hospitals, again, I commend you and every frontline worker, every first responder, every medical expert who are in this field dealing with this pandemic in so many different, in a multitude of ways. You all are putting your lives at risk, trying to save more lives, and that within itself deserves to be commended tremendously. And so I appreciate everything that you all are doing. I'm always thinking about you, and I'm always, concerned at making sure that you're okay. I know you're taking precautionary steps, but the thing that I'm learning about this pandemic, it's not so much about the handful of people who are taking those steps, but it's about the ones who are not.
Exactly.
Those who aren't doing this shit, those are the ones that we need to be more concerned about, and making sure this information right here that we're talking about gets to them. So at least we can do something about flattening this curve to some, at least to a respectable amount, to where we can truly say, as a country as a whole, we have a handle on this, or at least a better handle on this, so that we can all travel safely to our friends and loved ones. You know, maybe not this year, because I honestly, in my heart of hearts, I don't see it happening any point in time in this year. The year 2020 is on record for being the worst damn year ever documented in the history of time. Anything outside of the Holocaust, anything outside of slavery, this is the worst year that's ever been documented in the history of life.
Yeah, I call it the lost year. I don't really think we're going to be able to recoup any of the time that we've lost this year. You know, my son is staying home. He's not going to school. He's going to do digital learning. I made that decision.
And you know what? And let me rephrase that. So not my next episode, because my next episode is going to be focused on talking to both private and public school educators as it pertains to going back to school. Because I want to get their perspective and how they feel about this, because oftentimes our teachers are not being listened to. We have these damn school board administrators and all these damn superintendents talking all this political shit, but only pushing their agenda out. But they're not taking into consideration all that the teachers have to go through. So just like yourself, as a medical expert, educators have to go through every damn thing on a day-to-day basis, dealing with kids, dealing with staff members, dealing with the administration. It's like so much that they have to take on a day-to-day basis that they themselves have to oftentimes decompress when they get home any way they can. So it's just a heavy burden that it's weighing on them on an everyday basis.
But what shouldn't happen, Joey, is Black and brown people should not be carrying the heaviness of that burden. And
absolutely not.
From the healthcare perspective, we are dying at record numbers. We are shouldering the brunt of this pandemic, just like we're shouldering the brunt of the HIV pandemic. We are carrying that medical burden, and we are disproportionately affected. So I do hope your audience take time to just listen to the podcast. Hopefully we provided some great information, some tidbits, some nuggets for them to be able to walk away with. If they can't find resources on the Department of Public Health or the CDC or Emory's website, they can reach out to you directly, and you can reach out to me. And we can do three-way where I can answer all the questions that they can, that I can.
Now, absolutely. And I will have another episode where I do have a list of questions from my followers who actually have those type of questions that they would like to know from your perspective. And so even from that standpoint, we'll have at a later date, we'll have another episode to basically focus in on those questions, because there's going to be a lot of questions that are being asked. Some of the questions are being asked constantly, and not enough information is being given to them. So what I'll do is I'll look on these websites and make sure that I get all that information, just so I can post on the social media pages for this podcast, where they can, obviously reach out to as far as the resources go, the CDC, the Department of Health, and just any of those local, state Department of Health, so that they can actually get in contact with and have those questions being answered to them. So I'll definitely make sure that I disperse that information out to the listeners.
Absolutely. Now, when you're donning the mask, I show you how to don it, but now I'm going to show you how to doff it. Okay. So when you're taking off your mask, the one thing you want to do again is clean your hands, because you don't want to now start touching eyes and stuff. You don't know. You've been to the store, you done touched everything in there. Wash your hands.
I keep hand sanitizer in my damn car. Every time I get out of the car, I put it on. When I come back in the car, I do it again. So it's just it's a routine thing now.
It's a routine thing, okay? You can clean your bags. If you have a UV light, you can hit your bags with a UV light that will degrade the virus, but you don't even need anything fancy like that. We have one, but you don't need anything fancy. If you bring in any bags in your house, a simple towel, you spray it down, wipe your bags. What we know about this virus is it degrades, it denatures rapidly. Okay. So it's not a hardy virus, meaning you got to have extra extreme stuff to kill it. Simple bleaching water, soap and water, it starts to break the cell right apart. So if you just simply clean your hands, wipe the bags down, you don't need anything fancy just to bring stuff into your house. I say wipe everything down, put it up. Okay. Wipe your hands, when you get ready to take your mask, don't start around your eyes and any of that. You always want to just start wherever your loops are.
Yeah.
Pull your loops straight up and then pull it off. Now, if the virus is anywhere, it's on the outside of your mask, okay? Yeah. So when you have a cloth mask, you want to take it and fold it in and close it in like this. If you have a washable one, just drop it in the wash.
Yeah.
If you're wearing a cloth mask, I recommend you have one for every day.
Yeah.
Wash them all at the same time, stack them up for the next week, okay? Also, in my car, I have alcohol spray. So in my car, when I take off my mask, I usually doff mine in the car, and then I take my spray and I spray the outside of my mask. If I'm going in the store, I wear an N95 mask because I don't know what the hell. I don't know what's in the store.
Yeah.
So my simple cloth mask don't do, and my surgical mask don't do. I have N95 masks. Carlos, because he has allergies and works outside, he keeps an N95, and so he had a box of them. So I wear my N95. I keep it in the car, and I only wear it when I'm going in closed spaces or when I'm not outdoors.
Okay.
I wear my N95. So I spray the outside of it, spray the inside, flatten it out, and I put it down. Otherwise, I doff it just like I told you. I take it off, I fold it in, and I drop it in the wash, and then I clean my hands, okay? So don't manipulate it. So if you got anything on the outside of your mask, the last thing you want to do is be, well, I got it on, I'm touching it, Well, if you were able to stop the virus from getting in, you gonna make it get in by doing all this.
And that's the thing about just being jittery, and it's like it's a natural instinct for most people to like touch their faces. And I know for me, now that I have a beard now, I oftentimes do touch my face, and I'm always doing that. So it is a habit that I have to break. But I understand to that point, though, making sure that my hands are clean first before doing that. So
before you do it, so don't be touching all on your mask, because remember, if anything's contaminated and stopping droplets, it's right out here. The droplets are so big they can't get through. That's why if I'm blowing out a candle, that don't matter. The thing is, you don't want big droplets to get through. This is not going to protect you against micro droplets.
Yeah.
You need a respirator to do that. That's why I say, if you have an N95, try to wear that if you're going in closed spaces or where you can't avoid and socially distance properly, and you believe that the virus, if it is there, is in a confined space. But then I would say wear a respirator.
Okay.
Okay.
I greatly appreciate it. I know we went well over time for this episode, but this is important though, because this is vital information that needs to be put out there to all my followers and listeners, and even future followers and listeners who go back to this episode and say, okay, from a medical standpoint, this is what I need to be doing right now, because if I want to keep myself safe and obviously help flatten the curve and survive in this thing, then we all need to be doing our parts equally. Not just a handful of us. It needs to be all of us doing this shit, because we all have a part to play in this. In order for us to get a handle on this and make it through this alive, to be able to at least look down, just in the future and say, you know what, we lost a lot of people, let's honor and recognize them then. We can't do that if we're going to be one of the ones that's going to be honored and recognized.
Absolutely.
So,
clean your house with bleach.
Yeah.
Wipe everything down, especially doorknobs.
Yes.
Doorknobs,
Absolutely.
door handles, wipe everything down. Keep your kids in the house. I don't let my son go anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. And now he's to the point where now he's like, he don't want to, I couldn't even get him to go get a haircut. He was like, oh, you can cut it.
Yeah. Now that I'm like, listen, well, I'm gonna talk to Jordan about that, because I'm like, you can do that, man, because the one thing that's keeping us men sane is at least getting our damn haircut. I gotta keep this looking good now. I can't be looking too rough right now, because that alone is an outlet for me to at least look the part. But even with precautionary steps though, I'm not gonna just be all just freely with it with no mask on. I'm gonna take the necessary steps I need to take to at least get my hair cut though. So,
exactly. And I was trying to do that with him, and he was like, nope, I don't want to go.
But you know what? That paranoia that he has is actually going to work in his favor. So it's going to keep him safe from this. And I wish more kids actually adopt that whole notion to do that, because we're seeing too many of them out here recklessly just still being outside doing whatever, being in crowds. Parents too. Yeah, but we'll speak on that. Yeah, another topic for another time. So again, I thank you again so much for being on this podcast and just explaining to everyone from your medical expertise exactly what we need to be doing, because so many people thinking this is not real, and we're seeing the evidence say otherwise. And so I love you. I'm always thinking about you. We're always contacting each other anyway through like Facebook Messenger and everybody else. So
I love you. I just want to admonish you for this podcast and trying to get the right information out to people. I love that you're doing that you're promoting Black business, that, you know what, frankly, you just taking a stand.
Yeah, I am, because I feel like if there was ever a time to put out information and do what's right, now is the time. And so I just want to do my part and making sure that I'm doing something to make a difference. And even if that means talking to other people who know more about these situations and certain instances than I do, because I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to talk to those people who have answers from their expertise. And so, to speak about these issues from any walks of life, any profession, I want to be able to say, I put that information out for people to say, okay, this is vital information for us to be listening to right now.
Right. Well, I just want to come in and honor you for doing it.
I appreciate that.
And I think anybody that's listening know your heart and know what it is that you're trying to do, and you're just trying to get the right information out. You're trying to get your subject matter experts on here to give it to people straight. And I think if you're doing that, then you're part of the solution. So thank you for doing that and putting all of this together and orchestrating it on a weekly basis, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and I do it again. Thank you for all the information you've been able to provide. And I'm definitely going to make sure that, I go above and beyond to make sure that this information is being put out there for everybody to be listening in on it and taking those precautionary steps to help us flatten this curve in this country and possibly in this world. So, again, thank you for your time. We can go on and on about other stuff, but we'll have more episodes like this to talk more about other stuff, because I'm definitely going to need you for just from a military perspective. And if you can reach out to anyone who would love to be on the podcast too, just speaking from their military experience, I can definitely appreciate that as well. And would like to have you both on the show for that. So
absolutely, anytime.
Yeah. Give my boy Carlos and my boy Jordan my love. I love y'all. I'll be hitting y'all up, just checking in on y'all, seeing how y'all doing, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Absolutely, love you, cuz.
All right, love you too.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Thank you.